and the adrenaline rush to grab the snatcher may have appeared to some as a wild rugby game, but you cannot discount the strategy at play in all that chaos, with the primary objective of both parties being to secure the ultimate position in Parliament, and that's the position of the Speaker of Parliament. Now, could the events in Parliament on the 7th of January 2021 be the foreshadow of events to come in the next 4 years in the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic? And now that is the question we are asking, and we will be interrogating. Now, on the show this morning, we shall discuss the chaos, the strategies employed, the outcomes, and what all these mean, not just for the legislature, but the executive and the two main political parties in and outside of Parliament. Now, there's so much to talk about on the show today. You don't want to miss any part of it, so we encourage you to stick with us and enjoy all the analysis we shall be bringing you. And let me remind you that the show is kindly brought to us by Airtel Tigo, and it runs from now till 9:50, where conversations are brought to a close, but not after some serious analysis. So we encourage you to stick with us. But intermittently, we shall be taking your messages and comments as well. So do send them through to our WhatsApp line 020-2166-633, and we will try as much as possible to share them with the rest of the world. And so we'll take a quick break. When we come back, I will introduce to you the panelists who will be having this conversation with me. This is the key point. Stay with us. We will be right back.
With schools temporarily closed and students staying home, teachers at North Hills International School, the most preferred private school in Ghana, award recipient in 2018, continued to have constant interactive classes with our pupils while simulating classroom experience online. At North Hills International School, we adapt to change and we go the extra mile to make sure any investment made in your ward's education yields the best results. We admit students from preschool to junior high school. Our arms are open to welcoming your ward into our wonderful community. Call us today and let your child start a promising journey of global excellence with us. North Hills International School, climbing academic excellence.
High sense movie chapeau.
High sense bronya. 15th December, couple 15th January. What you want? Ni atete ni amane so say.
What do we say? High sense ni ma. Hey papa, next nyam kanianso. High sense pen atwa de oba. Yema 5 years warrant. Hey. Yema 5 years warranty.
High sense ni amane nyina. Ya tete so. Every television,
refrigerator, chest freezer,
air condition,
gas cooker, electric cooker,
washing machine,
mobile phone, sound system,
microwave oven,
blender, iron,
rice cooker,
water dispenser,
kettle,
steamer,
any be break home.
Aye, high sense nonya.
15th December, couple 15th January.
High sense showroom bia, and never be all bia. Ya tete so.
Extra sa obeko high sense showroom bia na oni abedija. COVID-19 wo hihye bia, ye de gu akwam.
Thank you for your appreciation. I love that.
High sense, everyday prices for everyday people. And your high sense bronya.
As a new mom, there are moments of pride, joy, and doubt. Yes, doubt. Has he slept enough? Does she have everything she needs? Does she have all the nutrition she deserves? Each bowl of Cerelac contains goodness that helps your child blossom. That's one less thing to worry about. Cerelac, it's all good, Mom. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Pepsodent introduces charcoal and lemon essence. The unique combination of natural essences whitens teeth naturally For you and family, because every smile matters.
Sunday on Date Rush.
My instinct is telling me this guy is telling lies.
What's so one? So, girlfriend will be in any code date about it.
When last did you read your Bible? And can you quote what you read in the Bible?
Yeah, I can. How long have you been single?
5 years.
Where the party there today? Hey mama, hey I ever say.
After all the defending.
Oh, they took us to church.
Oh, me, I like it. I wanted to tell him then you'll be also ready, never call it also. I remember.
Why would you do that? He will leave without a date. He should just leave the stage.
The all-new season of Date Rush shows this Sunday at 8 p.m. on TV3. Don't miss it. The all-new season of Date Rush is proudly brought to you by Rush Energy Drink, Carnival-flavored liqueur, Ernest Ointment, Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, and Napa Foods.
Hello Ghana is the first semi-final of the National Genius Challenge. Which of these schools shall make their way to the finals of the National Genius Challenge? Libby Bagbin Preparatory School from Takwa in the Western region, Chila School from Hacho in the Greater Accra region, or Mount Olivet Methodist Academy from Dansoman in the Greater Accra region. Join us this Saturday at 2 p.m. on TV3 as we enjoy this great competition. National Genius Challenge, developing intellectuals.
Powered by Uniwest Foundation with sponsorship from Best Western Premier Hotel, Bayport Savings and Loans, Bright Schools, ISONS, Institute of ICT Professional Ghana, Prospectus Ghana Limited,
MJ Seafoods, Anasco Skills and Digicom Engineering Limited, Extra Class.
Supported by
The National Juniors Challenge shows every Saturday at 2 p.m. on TV3. The Ladies Circle.
Your Saturday evenings are never the same when 4 intelligent ladies are on your screens talking about everything that has to do with women as we get into honest conversations, giveaways, and fun games.
Hi guys, this is Shatamishi,
Sissy Nassau, Zinel Zoo. I'm Juliet Ibrahim.
This is the Ladies Circle.
Join the host of the Ladies Circle. Keep watching the Ladies Circle. The Ladies Circle.
Keep watching the Ladies Circle this and every Saturday live on TV3.
Let's get interactive on social media. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hashtag the Ladies Circle.
The Ladies Circle every Saturday 6 p.m. on TV3. Brought to you by
Yaz Sanitary Pad.
Hey, we got loads of cash to give away right here on Family Feud TV3. Victory! 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 Yeah, see, you can want her, but if she don't want you, we got problems. So you saw him early and went, Sir? Sir? Got to be there. Yeah! There is nowhere never. This party is over. Yes! Yes! Hell yeah.
Family Feud shows this Saturday at 8 p.m. and repeat on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. on TV3. Family Feud is brought to you by Malta Guinness. Enjoy a world of good.
This Sunday on Date Rush.
My instinct is telling me this guy is telling lies.
What's so one? So, girlfriend will be in any code date about it.
When last did you read your Bible? And can you quote what you read in the Bible?
Yeah, I can. How long have you been single?
5 years.
Where the party there today? Hey mama, hey I ever say.
After all the defending.
Oh, they took us to church.
Oh, me, I like it. I wanted to tell him then you'll be also ready, never call it also. I remember.
Why would you do that? He will leave without a date. He should just leave the stage.
The all-new season of Date Rush shows this Sunday at 8 p.m. on TV3. Don't miss it. The all-new season of Date Rush is proudly brought to you by Rush Energy Drink, Carnival-flavored liqueur, Ernest Ointment, Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, and Napa Foods.
It's our industry and we will critique it to make it better.
The finest entertainment pundits here in Ghana with in-depth knowledge of the entertainment industry.
Do not politicize the face of our entertainment industry because it is not just for fun. It is a lot of hard work. I mean, loads of hard work.
We applaud, analyze, criticize, and update you on the happenings in showbiz here in Ghana and beyond.
There's a reason we speak to the arts and culture. The day we lose grip of that narrative, we are doomed.
This is Simply Showbiz. We set the agenda with blunt analysis of the arts and entertainment industry.
Because it's our passion. My name is Bulldog.
My name is Kwame Ajimaibeko.
I am Whitney Boachimensa.
My name is Anoda Samabe.
My name is Ms. G. Join my pundits and I right here on TV.
Simply Showbiz shows Saturdays at 11 a.m. on TV3.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to The Key Points. We are live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, also online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. So this week, as I said earlier, was the week that we had the 7th Parliament of the Fourth Republic dissolved and the 8th Parliament inaugurated. Also, we had the swearing in of both the President and the Vice President. And what a week it has been, particularly the days, the 6th and 7th of January. And we're going to be talking about that all throughout the show this morning. To help us have that conversation in the studio, we have Mr. Joseph Bemka. He's the former Honourable Member of Parliament for Timpani constituency and also a former Deputy Attorney General. And we have Mr. Yao Pong, a private legal practitioner. We're expecting to be joined in the studio as well by Honourable Sam George, MP for Ningo, and on Zoom by Colonel Festus Obuaji. So we currently have two. We'll start off, and when the two join us, we will do the needful and introduce them accordingly. But good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Happy New Year to both of you.
Good morning. We are happy to be here too.
Good morning.
Happy returns.
I know. So it's been an eventful week.
Yes.
We would want to start off with the conversation with a look at how things started. Well, I mean, we could start with the Cape Coast High Court's decision restraining a member of Parliament, particularly the Asin North MP-elect at the time, from taking part or from being sworn in as a member of Parliament. But perhaps we would deal with that when we come further into the bit about the voting process in Parliament. So let's just start off with what happened on the 6th, events leading up to the dissolution of the 7th of 7th January. Sorry, and let me start with you, Honourable Pemka. We saw we saw everything play out on TV, and we saw the NDC side take the majority side of Parliament. I believe, obviously, that was quite curious to many who were watching because that was still the 7th Parliament because they got in around 10 and they got into the majority side of Parliament. Let us understand what that was all about and how you reacted to that.
Well, thank you very much. And I wish to wish you the best of the new year as well. This is the first time we're meeting in the year.
Yes.
And also, good morning to the good people of my constituency, Timpani. Very interesting.
You didn't say I shall return.
That one will take the grace of God.
Amen.
You see, I don't know where to start from, but the shock is too much to bear. The scenes that you have actually described, the despicable and I just cannot describe the scenes that we're looking at. But let me start from what you indicated, the Asin North issue, before I can zero in on that. Now, the Asin North issue did not come as a surprise to me. Because when the initial information started filtering in that the honorable member-elect at the time did not renounce his citizenship of Canada, at the time of filing his nominations and etc. And people started exhibiting those documentation on social media to prove indeed that he did not renounce his citizenship at the time of filing the nomination and all that. And there was no credible denial of those posts and etc. Then one was tempted to believe that there was a case against him. And so when it went before the High Court in Cape Coast, the issue for determination prima facie was whether on the face of the documents available, he renounced his citizenship of Canada at the time he was filing. Because I have filled that form on 2 occasions, and there is a portion that you are supposed to declare whether you owe allegiance to any other country. Definitely, this is in compliance with Article 94. Whether or not you renounced your citizenship of another country or you owe allegiance to another country, so fundamental. And so that declaration ought to be made at the time of filling the form. And so what is curious at this moment is, what did the honorable member indicate on his form? Did he say that he did not owe allegiance to any other country? And I guess he would have said so, because if he had said he owed allegiance to another country, then the Electoral Commission could, at that stage, draw his attention to that constitutional injunction. So I assume that he declared that he did not owe allegiance to another country. And if he did declare that he didn't owe allegiance to another country, when he knew at the time that he owed allegiance to another country other than Ghana, then that clearly ran counter to Article 94(2), which is very clear that you should not owe allegiance to any other country. And if you do hold allegiance to another country and you make a false declaration on your form that you do not owe that, then you commit an offense. And as I said, that has almost become like a strict liability offense. Because in that case, the evidence will have to shift on you to prove that you indeed have renounced your citizenship of that other country. And in this particular case, what was before the court was the raw facts, and they exhibited the documentation to, and answers from the commission to indicate whether at the time of filing he had done that. And once those things were all put before the judge, he came to a certain conclusion that the plaintiffs in that matter had made a very strong case. And the strong case was that by the documents exhibited, which could not be controverted by the other side, it was clear that there was a constitutional violation. And so the judge said, look, allowing you to go to Parliament will cause some irreparable damage to the plaintiffs. And of course, if by the documents available, and you know the principles, we are not discussing law strictly speaking, but the principles for the grant of interlocutory injunction are actually, they've been espoused by the courts time and again, earlier on, and even current cases and all that have actually stated categorically the principles underpinning the grant of an interlocutory injunction. And so based on that, the judge came to the conclusion that allowing the honorable member to take his seat in Parliament was going to cause irreparable damage. And that at the end of the case, I mean, mere compensation of the party, if they were victorious, could not actually assuage the pain they would have suffered as a result of that, because the person would have been sworn in. And mind you, the party that was seeking this, if you have a near-hang parliament as we had, and somebody was seeking to stop that, and for example, the man went ahead and participated in an election that won his side the vote, then later, if you do get him guilty by the offense that he's supposed to be charged with before the court, or civilly, if there's a declaration made by the court to the effect that he indeed was not qualified, he had already taken part, and a decision has been taken that cannot be reversed.
Very well.
So the judge considered a gamut of factors, you know, and as a result of this, came to that conclusion that we will not allow you to go.
Right.
And so issued that injunction, which was later served on the clerk of parliament for onward service to the party. But Abner, the most curious point at this stage that I want to actually espouse is the fact that before all of us, full glare of the world, the clerk indicated unequivocally that he had been served with the process, injuncting the honorable member. And yet, that's curious. After several deliberations, it was concluded that if he's going ahead, his attention has been drawn to it, and so he should bear the consequences. And people accepted that. And that was a dangerous act of bravado. Very dangerous indeed.
Right. On that note, let me come to Mr. Alban to pick it up from there. So, yes, like Honorable Kemka has said, we all saw that deliberation, ensue between the NDC and the NPP after the clerk had confirmed that indeed he had been served with the order of the court, which sought to restrain the MP-elect of Asin North constituency from, presenting himself to be sworn in and all of that. But then we saw what happened subsequently. What do you make of that, Mr. Alban?
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I think, first of all, we know that a person is usually liable or responsible for his own actions, especially if it's coming from court. But we also know that for civil contempt, it will take the person in whose favor the order was made to proceed to the court and by the processes established by law, inform the court that your orders have been disobeyed by the person against whom they were given. So sometimes it's possible for a person to imagine that even if I disobey these orders of the court, it is possible that the applicant may not go back to the court. Right. And since it's not criminal contempt, in my understanding, nobody else has the power or is entitled to go inform the court. The court cannot even on its own call back the party, the respondent, for purposes of punishing him. That will also be a violation of the law. Right. So I think that people are able to weigh the consequences of their actions in terms of the benefits that may accrue to them as against the pain they may suffer, and choose the benefit. Perhaps even if it be punished, it will still not be better served than the benefit that has accrued to him, especially in a particular moment. Right. Understand?
But what does that say about the legislature? The legislature is supposed to be the place where laws are formulated and all of that, and to find that in that very house there are violations of the law. What does that say?
Well, granted that, but I think sometimes also, with all due respect, we credit our fellow human beings with too much of expectation of propriety. It's as if the moment a person becomes a member of parliament, then he becomes a saint. Yes, because he's a lawmaker, he's a role model, he's a leader, the standard of exhibition of good conduct may become higher, but it doesn't make them more human, or it doesn't make them a deity when we are then just to serve them and subjects. But I have heard people also justify the I won't say violation for now, but the refusal of the MP concerned not to the refusal of the MP concerned, or the decision of the MP. See how I'm struggling because I'm just trying to be right.
Appropriately.
The decision of the MP concerned to rather err on the side of voting than not, or on the side of being sworn in than not, is that the manner of service and the order itself violated the law, or they were unlawful and void. Some said a court does not determine who a member of parliament should be.
Yep.
But I've made a point elsewhere. It's a point that we all know. Sure. And I expressed in the famous case of Republic versus High Court Accra, S-Party, Aishetu, Afoda, and another. Now, where Pega JSC, in the usual exhibition of skill and knowledge, stated, and I quote, as a matter of public policy, it is important that the authority of the court and the sanctity of its process and orders be maintained at all times. It is too dangerous to give to a litigant and his counsel the right to decide which orders or process of the court are lawful and therefore deserving of obedience, and if not, must be disobeyed. An order or process of a court of competent jurisdiction cannot be impeached by disobedience. That way, we would needlessly be empowering lawyers in their various chambers to have supervisory jurisdiction of the courts. That is an effective way to undermine, if not destroy, the administration of justice. And so whatever it is, yes, it is admitted that if a court has no jurisdiction to make an order, the person whose favor it was given goes home with nothing. It is not also the remit of the person against whom it was given not to obey it. You go back to the court itself, show to the court how frivolous or void the decision is, and urge on the court to set it aside or go on appeal. But these are without prejudice to what has happened. As I said, it is up to the applicant if he so desires. And knowing the established threshold for making a case for contempt. For example, you may have to ask yourself whether the respondent was indeed served with the order or it was otherwise brought to his notice in accordance with law, whether or not he intentionally disobeyed it with knowledge of the content of the order, and whether or not in so doing the court has no other power to even grant him some reprieve. And these are some of the basic questions that the applicant himself, who bears the heavy burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt, contempt applications being in the nature of criminal or quasi-criminal process or proceeding, you will have to discharge these. So unless the applicant is convinced, he may also decide to go or not to go. So, right. But looking at the all that transpired, I think that sometimes, well, I won't take it away from people, but I think we allow our excesses and errors to prevail over all the good things and the excellent, virtuous achievements. I mean, these things happened. Everybody would have wished that it didn't. It did, but why are we not highlighting the end? The perfect, I would say, exhibition of statesmanship and patriotism by the same members of parliament. I mean, look at the way, at the end of the day, the choice of all the others, which could have also gone through some acrimonious process, was just settled in a very cordial manner, and we ended up being able to beat the injunction to constitutional injunction to ensure that members of parliament were sworn in at least by midnight, and the president on the last day of his term, which is 7. If these had not been done, can you imagine the lacuna or the vacuum we would have had? We would have no members of parliament, therefore no parliament, and we would have had no executive, and therefore no president. So I think that much as we may be criticizing the members of parliament, and I think if something that I have seen is indeed coming from parliament, signed by the director or attributed to the director, there's even some admission that something better could have been done, and I'm saying this on the caution that it could be fake, but whether that is issued or not, I think on hindsight, members of parliament themselves, if they sit back and watch the TV with their children, if given another opportunity, and they have the power. Some of these things are involuntary. On the spur of the moment, you may be compelled to react.
Wow.
But when you sit back and watch it again,
right,
I think if you are given another opportunity, there's no way you may repeat it.
Right.
Condemnable as some have called it, and as it may be, I think we should, without sounding repetitive, rather highlight the
positive side,
which they themselves, after these unfortunate events, exhibited and has led to compliance with the relevant laws.
Very well. That's well noted. And thankfully, we have a member of parliament who was in there whilst that all happened, join us. And that's the person of Mr. Sam George, MP for Ningo Pram Pram. So we'll be speaking to him to understand exactly what was going through the minds of the members of parliament as all of that played out. But the subject of citizenship or dual citizenship has come up. And indeed, it is integral to the discussions we are having here. And so there's a story on citizenship, and we'll take that. And when we come back, we'll continue our conversation. So let's take a listen to that story put together by the network.
Article 94(2)A of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana clearly states a person shall not be qualified to be a member of parliament if he owes allegiance to a country other than Ghana. While over time, the Samuel Bilbil versus Adamusa Kande case is always a point of reference, the discussion seems to have been revived in the Asin North MP-elect election dispute. With the decision of a high court being awaited, it further leaves the gates open for a wider public debate on why Ghanaians of dual or multiple nationality should not or be allowed to contest for public office positions. For legal practitioners, the Constitution is very clear on eligibility for key positions in Ghana.
Dual citizenship does not prevent you from voting. You have the right to vote. But it limits your right to occupy certain public offices. Not all public offices.
Overall, strong arguments have been made by the diasporan community to the effect that they are a major source of foreign inflows through remittances into Ghana, for example, and directly and indirectly contribute to the development of the country. As a result, should be allowed to contest. Lawyer Chris Mamhesi also states, moral reasonings sound logical, but are clearly not legal.
Morality is not always what it is, but the law is. So that no matter how bad a law is, the law emanates from the people. Unless the people have changed the position of the law, then that becomes the grand norm.
Various advocates like Professor Kweku Asare, a US-based Ghanaian lawyer, have argued dual citizens, regardless of why they acquired nationality of other countries, have complete, total, and unwavering loyalty to Ghana. More so, many of them have amply demonstrated to their continued involvement in the socio-economic development of the country. As a result, their commitment should remain unquestionable and trusted. But should that always be the case?
Occupying certain public positions comes with certain prerequisites. And these sensitive positions are important to the state such that you need to have total and committed allegiance to the state. So that if you are just an ordinary citizen of the country, you can hold dual citizenship. And that the law has made provisions for.
Apart from this argument about allegiance and security of the state and all of that, I have not seen any other argument against why dual citizens cannot hold public offices. Assuming you are a national of the United States, and you know how the United States treats its citizens, and you're also a national of Ghana, and you are given a position in Ghana to occupy and all of that, and then subsequently Ghana wants to put you on trial. The United States can come and say that, you know what, this is a citizen of the US, we will not permit you to do that, so bring the person back to the US. So these are some of the reasons underpinning why the people of Ghana have taken a position that when it comes to dual nationals, we will limit what we will give them. If you want to enjoy fully as a sole Ghanaian, so to speak, then do away with this commitment and be committed fully to this one.
Broadly, the bigger picture of dual citizens and Ghanaians living abroad taking up positions seems to be another debate for another day, with reasons best intended by the framers of the 1992 Constitution.
There was heavy security at the Cape Coast High Court premises ahead of the ruling of the dual citizenship of the MP-elect for Asin North, Joe Quayson. An injunction had been filed by a resident of Asin Breku, Michael Akom Nimfa A. Mason, restraining the Member of Parliament-elect for Asin North, Joe Quayson, from holding himself as MP-elect. The petitioner argued that the MP-elect held a dual citizenship prior to filing to contest for the election. Lawyer for the applicant, Gary Nemako, explained the court's decision.
We'll come back here to continue with the case to determine the fullness of the case. But for now, Mr. Quayson, James Quayson, he cannot go to Parliament. So he cannot be sworn in. He cannot be sworn in. He cannot go to Parliament. That is the fact of the matter. So NDC numbers are reduced by 1.
Meanwhile, scores of the NDC supporters who thronged the court premises to witness the proceedings expressed their displeasure over the decision of the court and the petitioner.
Right, so that was a story there put together looking at dual citizenship and the implications thereof. And particularly that is coming against the background of Article 94(2) of the 1992 Constitution, which says that a person shall not be qualified to be a member of parliament if he A, owes allegiance to a country other than Ghana. That's a specific or the relevant provision of the Constitution bringing up this whole discussion, Article 94(2) of the 1992 Constitution. But let me quickly announce the presence of Mr. Sam George, the Honourable MP for Ningo Pram. He's joined us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome and thanks for your time and a Happy New Year to you.
Thank you very much, and a Happy New Year to you too, and my brother Joseph Pemka and Senior Yawapong.
Yes,
now viewers, and my sincere apologies for getting here late.
That's
fine.
And better late than never.
Apologies for the nature of my voice. I think it's one of the
consequences of events of 6th and 7th of January.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's all good. So let's start from the hours leading up to the dissolution of the 7th Parliament, because you were a member of the 7th Parliament and are still a member of the 8th Parliament. And on the 6th of January, around 10 p.m., I believe that was when members of Parliament started going into the chamber. Is that correct?
We got in around 9.
9, very well. So at the time, it was still the 7th Parliament.
Yes.
And per the order of the House, the majority takes the right side and the minority the left. So what happened with the minority of the 7th Parliament going to take the majority side? Because I believe that is what triggered a whole chain of events. So we'd want to know what informed the NDC to take that side of the House in the 7th Parliament.
All right. Once again, a very good morning. I think that we need to make a few things clear. Earlier in the day of the 6th, even though the lifespan of the 7th Parliament terminates at midnight of the 6th, earlier in the day, sometime around 2 p.m., 3 p.m., the 6th Parliament technically had come to an end because we had concluded business for the day. We had the minority leader at the time, Haruna Idrisu, give his closing remarks. The majority leader at the time, Osei Mensah Bones, to give his closing remarks. And the speaker, Mike Aaron Okwe, at the time, also gave his closing remarks for the end of that session of Parliament. So when we came into the chamber at night, there were no members of the 7th Parliament who were not going to be part of the 8th Parliament present. So I give you a typical example. Fifi Kwete, who was a member of the 7th Parliament, representing the people of K2 South, was present in the House but sitting in the gallery. So even though the lifespan technically had not ended, there was no business of his in the chamber. And that's why you realize that the Speaker of the 7th Parliament did not enter the chamber again. My brother Joseph Pemka did not come into the chamber with his side. Because even though technically or constitutionally the 7th Parliament had not terminated yet, there was no business left for the 7th Parliament to carry out. So it was members of the 8th Parliament coming in, waiting for the stroke of midnight for the constitutional requirement of the end of the 7th Parliament to take effect, and then for the Clerk of Parliament to immediately commence the business of the 8th Parliament. Now,
and so at that time it was a free-for-all situation, is that what you're saying?
No, so I'm giving the background to why when members walked in, we went to the majority side. It's simply because it was not as though it was members of the 7th Parliament coming into the chamber. It was members of the 8th Parliament coming into the chamber. Now, when you take the 8th Parliament, it was 137, as declared by the EC, 137 for the NDC, 137 for the NPP, and 1 independent candidate. Now, we were all members of Parliament elect. A member of Parliament who is elected on the ticket of another party or as an independent candidate can choose to side with another caucus after he has been sworn in by our standing orders. So for anybody to read the independent member from Fomina as a member of the NPP to give them majority, that person had no basis in law or per our standing orders to do those permutations. Because going in, it was 137, 137, 1. And so there was technically no majority and no minority.
Okay, pause for me. Let me get, because this is subject to interpretation. Because like you rightly admitted, even though that constitutional provision requiring the dissolution of the 7th Parliament had not yet taken effect because it wasn't midnight yet, you are saying that by reason of what had happened earlier on in the day, the 7th Parliament had come to an end. Let me put this to your co-panelists here for an understanding. Honorable Kwemka, what do you make of that?
Sam, I want to draw his attention to something. When Mr. Speaker of the 7th Parliament, before we rose, he actually adjourned the House Sinidi. He did not dissolve it. Because the House stood dissolved by operation of law after midnight. So as of the time they were in there, the 7th Parliament technically was still in existence. But I want to draw my brother's attention to something very critical. He's made his submission about the numbers, the numerical strength of the two political parties and the independent person. He got it right. 137, 137, one independent. But he knows, just as I do, that in the 7th Parliament, when we got in the very first time, what we're looking for was your name tag. Each member of Parliament, right in front of you, you have your name, right? So when they were seated, fundamental question is, were their name tags there? And the answer is emphatic, no. Their name tags were at the other side. That's how come you found later certain scenes.
Which we'll be playing back because it's like this conversation.
That's why you found those scenes later. You know. And so what triggered that? That was the start of chaos.
Right. Very well.
As soon as they sat there, and I recall there were accusations, I was not there, that some were even removing the name tags and taking those seats. So once you walked in and the name tags were there, you sat by the name tags.
Very well.
And that ended everything. Then you move from there.
That's
but the first problem started when the name tags were removed and people sat where they were not supposed to sit.
Very well. Honorable Samson, I'll come back to you, but let me have Ms. Opon's interpretation of the midnight, constitutional provision kicking in as against what happened earlier on in the day, which, according to Honorable Sam George, would symbolize the end of the 7th Parliament.
Yes, I think that technically the term of Parliament comes to an end or Parliament stands dissolved on the day of the inauguration of the previous Parliament. That's the day of the 4th year. Now, so we have chosen for ourselves that we will do so for Parliament midnight entering into 7th, midnight of the 6th, entering into 7th of January of the 4th year. So if you want to look at it that way, then you think that until it's midnight, entering into 7th, the old Parliament ought to have been deemed to be in session, so to speak. But if it were to be so, that will also cause some delay and, if you like, a vacuum, in the sense that if Parliament doesn't do what they do before the entering into the next, the executive swearing in or the swearing of the president and the vice may also in a way be affected.
Very well.
I always hold the view that, especially for the executive, if, for example, let's say 2017, I hold the view that until Nana Akufo-Addo took the oath, President Mahama was the president, even whilst they were going to the grounds. But it looks like around that time, once in the morning, the existing president is not accorded any recognition anymore. And I've commented on it that in my understanding, that is wrong.
Right.
There must be a formal transfer of power. Of course, not beyond 7. And so in the morning when you are even going to the grounds to have the new president take the oath, he is still president because the reckoning of the time is that
you don't think that recognition is given?
No, because even the last time, look at the 2017. Did you see President Mahama accorded the title president, even in all the convoys and so on? Correct me. So in the same way, when you come to Parliament, I think that since they have chosen for themselves in practice to end or to cause Parliament to be dissolved 12 a.m., getting into 7, then we should have continued to accord them that recognition. And then 12 a.m. into 7th, the new Parliament now starts the election of the Speaker, who then will will swear them into office.
Well.
So whichever way you take it, until the 12 midnight, we shouldn't have seen the previous Parliament to have been dissolved.
Right, very well. Now,
I just want to draw your attention to something in a minute.
Briefly.
Based on what lawyer has said. You see, Lawyer Paul, the situation you are creating is not backed by law.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's not backed by law. You have a situation where the law says that at midnight, the tenure of office of ministers,
so
MNDC
until midnight,
president,
the previous one is deemed to be enforced.
Until midnight. So right after midnight, you have a situation where there is no president. So you can't refer to a person as president when his tenure of office
Can you show me the law?
Has
Since you said mine is not bad, can you show me the law that says that the term of office of president ends midnight to 7? I want you to show me the law.
No, you see,
no, there is no such law.
Mr. Okon, I want you to. In fact, I don't have my.
Let's go to Article 66.
I don't have the this thing immediately with me. The Presidential Transition Act immediately with me. But I would have made reference to certain provisions there. However, considering the fact that you're making this particular argument, if we say that stricto sensu, there is no spelling out that at midnight, this particular thing in the Constitution, at midnight, this particular tenure of office comes to an end. Agreed. Then you say that you should have somebody called president until the other one is sworn in. So when does that other person's tenure of office terminate?
So can I just go to Article 66?
I need to go back to Honorable Sam George. This exercise is important. This exercise is important. Honorable Sam George, I would definitely give you your time. So please, let's just get this part settled or clarified.
That is fine.
I think it's
Article
very important.
66 states clearly, expressly, a person elected as president shall, subject to clause 3 of this article, hold office for a term of 4 years, beginning from the date on which he is sworn in as president.
That's the 7th.
Is it not the 7th? And so why are you telling me, even if the 7th starts from 12 midnight, does it end at 12 midnight? Okay. And by practice, the president usually takes the oath sometime around 10 a.m., 11 a.m., or even 12 midday. So if the time begins from the date he takes the oath and ends on the date he took the oath, I am not convinced that before the oath is taken, his term of office has ended.
A very dangerous proposition.
No,
it's not. Very dangerous.
It's not.
So what
you can disagree with me, but you can't say that my proposition is dangerous.
What it means is that if His Excellency Nana,
there should be no vacuum.
The day before yesterday, His Excellency Nana Danko Akufo-Addo took the oath at 12. So if we go by what you are saying, his tenure of office will expire 2025, 7 January at 12.
He says 10 on the date. On the date.
Which would be 12 a.m. of...
There can never be a vacuum. Especially where the executive is concerned. There can never be a vacuum.
We can go on and on with this, then it would drag the conversation. It's an important thing we need to perhaps interrogate further.
Well, another time.
But let's go back to the discussion pertaining to Parliament.
On this substantive issue, I just do a 1 minute on this discussion. I think that reading 66.1 that Lawyer Alban read and 66.3, where it says that the president shall hold, subject to clause 3 of this article, he shall hold office for a term of 4 years, beginning from the date on which he is sworn in as president. Now, this is all technicalities. The day starts at what? 12:01. And so if he's sworn in on the 7th of January, technically speaking, he is president from 12:01 of 7th January. That's why we always say that the term of office of members of parliament and ministers of state and members of the executive ends on the 6th of January at midnight. However, and that's why even in my earlier submission on the parliamentarian,
you did acknowledge that.
There is technical and constitutional.
I want to believe the constitutional is a technical.
I'm coming. The constitutional mandate or the constitutional power kicks in when you swear the oath. But the technical bit also derives from the Constitution, which says at the end of your 4-year term. So the technicality is the 12 midnight cutoff point. However, the constitutionality is when you sworn the oath of allegiance and oath of member of parliament or oath of president or vice president. The lacuna that always exists, and here I tend to side with Lawyer Pemka, is the fact that we do not have the processes immediate at 12:01. So in that period, and in this submission, you would realize that when we get to discuss the issues involving the order to the military to enter the Chamber of Parliament, you realize where the importance of the fact that the powers of the executive terminate at 12:01. Now, coming to where we sat and the points he made.
About the name tags. Because I think that is your way of ensuring sanity.
The name tags were put, the name tags of the NPP were not put by Parliament. What's
the procedure usually? What happens
normally
usually?
The parliamentary service will put the name tags.
But this time they didn't.
They didn't because there was that challenge of who is majority and minority.
So what did they tell you to do? Because I'm thinking they should have said something.
So I'm giving you just relax. I was in Parliament as early as 6:30 for certain reasons. The chief whip on the MPP side, who I believe is the minority chief whip, Frank Anodompre, MP for Nsawame Durojiri, went to the Marshal's office around 7 p.m. And he went and took the name tags from the Marshal's office and came into the chamber and went to the right-hand side of Mr. Speaker and put the name tags. Subsequent to that, the deputy minority leader, Alex Afenyo-Markin, MP for Efutu, came and even did some reshuffling of the name tags. change positions.
Wait a minute. Is Honorable Afena marking a deputy minority speaker or deputy
minority leader?
Minority leader.
Yes, did I say speaker?
Yeah.
Sorry. Deputy minority leader.
He's what?
But
is it deputy speaker or deputy minority?
The first deputy speaker.
No. Afenyo Makin is deputy leader.
Very well.
Sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
He's deputy leader. Joe was declaration on public platform. He says deputy minority leader.
Yes.
Yes.
No,
that's dangerous.
Yes.
No. Honorable
I hold the view
that MPP is minority.
That the MPP is the minority.
How?
You are free to hold a contrary view.
No, how?
Why? Don't you hold a contrary view? Is that why you're challenging me?
Just a minute.
Let's educate the public.
Exactly.
Who is majority and who is minority? Not personal idiosyncrasies.
Factual, okay?
This is not personal idiosyncrasies.
That's fine. Honorable Kwemka, allow me. Honorable Sam George.
Yes.
You refer to Mr. Afenyo Makin as the deputy minority leader.
Yes.
Is that a factual situation? Is that a factual
statement?
Or that's your interpretation?
Do you have any facts to the contrary? When you saw and you've shown the videos from the swearing in or inauguration of the 8th Parliament, the majority sits on the right hand of Mr. Speaker. The minority sits on the left hand.
I think we should kept on referring to Mensa Bonsu as leader.
Yes. Minority leader, because
allowed him to speak first.
No. You see, if you want us to go down that road, when the clerk of parliament entered the chamber and commenced the business of the house, it is the majority leader who does the first proposition. Who did the first proposition?
No.
Was it not Haruna?
Very well.
Was it not Haruna?
A point.
Who rose first and nominated Alban Bagbin first?
30 seconds.
That's fine.
He allowed Chairman Sambosu to speak when we were coming towards the end, after Mr. Speaker had taken the chair. Now, at that point, normally when the house is about to rise, the minority leader speaks first and the majority leader speaks last.
I think
so. If you look at the proceedings in the house,
Honorable Samjord, that's fine. Let him react and then
my brother Samjord, you are misleading our viewers. Please, let's give some respect to our viewers.
Make your point, counsel. Sometimes these preambles are not.
I'm saying this.
Just make your point. Disagree with people, but don't use terms like.
Yeah,
that's why.
I am saying this because you see, factually, we have 137 and 137. Factually, this is not debatable, and I know my brother will not debate that. So if you have 137 and 137 for MPP and NDC, none holds a majority at that stage. Now you have an independent MP who says, I want to do business with MPP. That gives MPP 138.
Is that the case? He's still an independent candidate. He's
no,
still an independent person. It's when he's voting that he would add to the numbers. That is, if he decides to stick with NPP. But until then,
but he will have to decide where he wants to sit. He has to decide where he wants to sit.
Yes, but he doesn't sit there as an NPP person or a member of parliament.
Yes, but he adds to the number.
See,
I think really
why are we going back and forth on this? There was one election in the House. We saw how the election went. You are saying you have a member who says he will do business with you. When we voted in the House, how many votes did you get?
Let's try to make progress. Honorable Sandra, let's try to make progress here.
So what are we talking about? Who's the majority?
When you vote, the party that gets
so don't make that argument of voting.
Gentlemen, just relax.
That gives you majority.
Just relax. Honorable Sam George,
yes.
Let's make progress here by trying to get things straight and help viewers and listeners. So yes, there's 137 for NPP, 137 for NDC. So really and truly, there's no majority or minority.
The standing orders of Parliament demand that Parliament has a majority and a minority. The Parliament standing orders.
No, which of the...
Open it. I think standing order 3 or something. He says there shall be a minority caucus and a majority caucus.
Exactly. So
in Parliament.
And how is that determined when the numbers are the same?
And so I'm saying that as far as we in the majority are concerned, the NDC in Parliament, we have deemed ourselves to be the majority.
So you have deemed yourself.
And so I am entitled to hold that view. And if you hold a contrary view, I do not begrudge you. But you cannot force me to go with your view.
You get it.
So I think we've spent 5 minutes debating semantics.
But the word there is caucus, not party.
Let's take a listen to...
It's caucus, not party.
Let's take a listen to an interview granted by Professor Kweku Asare to Roland Walker, and we will come back to discuss further this issue we have. Oh, this is exactly that's what we're still looking at, and we seem not to be, making much progress. But let's take that interview.
Are expected, some of them are unexpected, and some of them are criminal. So we have to put them in different buckets. The fact that soldiers were able to invade our parliament is something that we must probe and find out why. Who gave them the order? The soldiers are only supposed to take orders from other soldiers who are in a position to give them the order. So who was the military official who gave them an order to go to parliament? If it was a civilian who gave them the order, we have a big infraction. The commander-in-chief himself does not order the soldiers directly. The commander-in-chief calls the armed forces people. That we have the generals and so on. He gives an order to the generals, and the generals figure out what to do. So that chain of command should be followed at all times. But it was not followed. It's unfortunate. Many people have not lived in a military era before, so they tend to forget how bad living under the military is. Then there's the hustling. I mean, parliamentarians, that's what they do. They hustle, they cajole, they make fun of each other. That is, that's par for the course. That's almost every parliament you see that. Then there's the snatching of the ballot box. That's criminal. That should be investigated. And anyone who took part in attacking the ballot, snatching the ballot, or otherwise interfering with the balloting process should be prosecuted. Parliament has its own security service. They have marshals. They have their own way of controlling chaos in Parliament, because there's always the potential for chaos to erupt in Parliament, because politics is a passionate subject and politicians get passionate about the things that they talk about. So there's always the parliamentary marshal or the parliamentary security system. So the idea that there were soldiers and the fact that they came in so rapidly suggests that they were hanging around there somewhere. That in itself is not very good. I mean, I don't have the answers. All I'm saying is we should probe that thing and find out what happened. And if there were any breaches, then we try to fix that so that they don't happen again. Remember, serving the clerk is not the same as serving the person who has been injuncted. And unless service is issued to the person who is injuncted, he has no reason not to be there. And so the facts there are contested. What happened, what really happened. With that is a matter that the court itself can decide. If the court believes that he was served and he didn't follow the court's instructions, then there are contempt proceedings that can be initiated against him. There was no reason to spend 2 hours trying to solve that when that thing itself was before a court. The person said he has not been served, case closed. It goes back to the court. If the court believes he was served, then he's in contempt of the court. If the court finds out that he was not served, then he's not in contempt of the court. That is no problem at all. But I think, as an aside, our courts should stop issuing injunctions that are calculated to prevent elected MPs from going to be sworn in, largely because people don't want them to vote in the speaker elections. This happened with the Amewu case. There was no reason for the Hoi Hoi court to grant the Amewu injunction. That was completely uncalled for. But once the Hoi Hoi injunction came out, then politicians, being what they are, they found an opportunity to politicize the courts, and the courts found themselves in the middle of politics. That's why you, a judge, should be aware of that and avoid injunctions, because it's a one-day thing, and then after that, you have ample opportunities to go into the merits of whatever is before you. There's tremendous confusion on the subject. And I just want to start by saying allegiance and citizenship represent different concepts. Let me try to give several reasons why. First, allegiance is typically voluntarily given. Allegiance is typically voluntarily given. Citizenship is typically involuntary. And the courts, Ghanaian courts, have actually spoken about this subject in a little less known case in the High Court called Rawlings versus Bilson. This case occurred when Bilson tried to disqualify Rawlings on grounds that Rawlings was not a Ghanaian citizen. And in that case, the difference between allegiance and citizenship was laid out because it was established factually that Rawlings was a dual citizen. That case, Rawlings himself, under oath, said that when he was born, he was a British subject. And then later on, when the Ghana Nationality Act came into force in May 1957, he became a Ghanaian citizen. So he's a dual citizen. Nevertheless, the court did not focus on the fact that he was a dual citizen. It focused on the fact that Rawlings owed allegiance to Ghana, and it established that allegiance with reference to his service in the military. The law, as I said, does not really bar people from becoming MPs. It's just the way we have misinterpreted allegiance. And I know there are currently some lawsuits, and the people who have been sued, when I listen to them, their defenses are very bad because they tend to think about, when did you renounce your citizenship? That makes no sense because Article 94(2)(a) talks about allegiance. So they should not even waste their time on when did you renounce your citizenship and all that. When you do that, that means you have admitted that allegiance means citizenship. They should contest the meaning of allegiance. So when the guy goes back to court in Cape Coast, rather than answer to the injunction, he should tell the judge to refer the case to the Supreme Court for an interpretation of allegiance. That, to me, is a better strategy than to concede that, well, allegiance means citizenship, and then when do we renounce and when don't we renounce? That is throwing away the big issue. That's a poor defense strategy. The people who are before the court should have a better strategy. They start by accepting that allegiance means citizenship. That is wrong strategy. You should start by saying Article 94(2) does not even mention citizenship.
Right, so that was Professor Kweku Asare
was his case. He has
in an interview with Roland Walker. We're still looking at developments on the 6th and 7th of January 2021, particularly looking at the dissolution of the 7th Parliament of the Fourth Republic and the inauguration of the 8th Parliament of the Fourth Republic. It didn't come without drama. As you could see in the pictures or the video that was going on the side of the interview that was being had with Professor Kweku Asare, you saw all that happen in there. In as much as we don't want to dwell so much on all those, it's important to look at it though, but we will try to make progress by looking at the very, very, very substantial parts of the things or the matters that emerged on those 2 days. We'll be moving on to look at the person of Honorable Alban Bagbin, who ultimately was elected as Speaker of the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic, to see whether or not he brings that unifying feature. But before that, we'll be looking at some other aspects of developments, particularly the military who went into the chamber. Why did they go there? And were they supposed to be there? Was it proper or not? We have a footage of that. Let's take a look, and then we will come to the panelists for their perspectives on that. Okay, well, if it's not ready, I think we can proceed nonetheless, because we all saw that play out. Let me start with you, Lawyer Pong. The military men getting into the chamber to, as it were, restore order. We do know that before they went in there, there was that whole chaos happening in there. But of course, we do know that these things happen in Parliament. They get resolved one way or the other. But we saw the military go in. And what we hear is that the marshals of Parliament, who in such circumstances are to take control, were overwhelmed. And so the military went in. Was it proper for that to happen?
Well, that's the issue. But I think, much as it would have been desirous that, or prudent that they were not there, I mean, watching the scenes here, I think the ultimate question to ask is, were they successful in calming tempers and restoring order? Obviously, there was disorder. You understand? And does it mean that the marshals had failed, the police had failed, and the last resort had to be the soldiers, the military? The military also have a role to play. Not only must they always be expected to go to war. I don't remember the last time that we commanded them to go to war on behalf of Ghana. But when there is a state of insecurity and all mechanisms provided by law have failed, then the question is not so much whether it was proper. Let us look at the end result. If an Honorable Sam George is here, the calm that was restored can be attributed to the soldiers, then I think that is a more important question to me than the propriety of otherwise of they coming. Because at the end of the day, you ask yourself, will the members of Parliament have continued to, quote and unquote, as people have described it, been disruptive of their own proceedings, as we are seeing it right now, but for the presence of the soldiers? Obviously, wherever we are, I mean, the presence of police make people sit on the edge. But when it comes to the soldiers, you get a bit more frightened. And I am not sure that they had actually come in there to cause mayhem themselves.
But there are those who are saying that they coming in there is tantamount to attempting a coup.
Well, they're entitled to their view. But my view is that I will look at the end result being that their presence at least caused some calm to be returned or to be restored. Because after that, we hardly saw such similar incidents until the latter part where all the other things too came in. So let us not sometimes also see the soldiers as if they are enemies of state or they are enemies of the system. And of course, I mean, remembering our past, but I don't remember the last time that when soldiers went to stage a coup, they actually went to Parliament to drive away members of Parliament. In fact, in these days, I always say that it is almost a near impossibility for any soldier to stage a coup. I mean, the recent development had rather been the rank and file of the ordinary people massing up. I mean, the Arab Spring and so on are examples, which, by the grace of God, we hope it wouldn't happen here. So, otherwise, then we alienate the soldiers. These soldiers live among us. They have children, they have wives, but to put them in a pigeonhole of having a sense of to disrupt state institutions all the time. I mean, since 1981, we have never had any coup d'etat, have we? No. And it appears that has become the established culture. And no soldier, in my view, ought to be motivated to disrupt this fantastic system that we are operating. So,
but at least what we've come to understand is that the police in matters like this should be the first point of call. If that fails, perhaps then you call for reinforcement, and then you would see the other security agencies also come in. But where it would appear that the military was the first point of call, then perhaps it would raise questions, unless we say those are not legitimate.
Of course, that's why I started by saying that there's then a presumption that the marshals failed, the police may have failed, and then the soldiers came in.
Very well.
But I'm saying that they are all part of the security services, and these people must perform a service. The manner in which we see them come in, it was not as if they were just coming to cause mayhem.
Very well. Let
me just state that much as it would have been desirable that other mechanisms were used. And first of all, the first question to ask is, what caused the members of parliament to engage in such act that we are all saying was not called for or was unbecoming of them, which I insist that the bigger thing to do is to rather highlight the positives. So if this had not happened, there wouldn't have been the need. Of course, what happened for them to also engage in this act, if that one had not also happened, there wouldn't have been the need for any soldier to go there. Let's go to the roots.
Very well. Honourable Sam George, you were in Parliament. What happened? What led, obviously not what led to the military coming, because we saw that there was rancor and everything. But how did the military get in? Was there a particular order made or to them to come in? And if so, who directed them to come in? Where were the marshals of parliament in all of that chaos that we saw play out on TV?
I will do that, but just 1 minute. Because I think when I walked in, I had some conversation. I thought I would have been given the opportunity to speak about it. The processes about that scene not MP and his vote.
You want to go back there?
Just in 1 minute.
Just in 1 minute. I mean,
just in 1 minute.
It's good to turn up. Better late than never, though. But sometimes when you come in and you take us back, that is also problematic.
If you read 117 of the Constitution, Article 117, and that was the crux of our argument, that there's immunity from service of process or arrest. And that immunity is in relation to the Speaker of Parliament, a Member of Parliament, or the Clerk of Parliament. And we established that fact there, that at the time that, and again, it took 11 minutes for the bailiff, to leave Cape Coast and get to Parliament.
Factually is not true.
Two.
The order was made around 1:30. And it was served on the speaker 4:55 p.m.
The clerk of parliament.
Actually not true. I mean the clerk of parliament.
If you read what I just read, 117, that service in itself was defective.
But it's not you
said that. You said that Parliament to dissolve around 3 o'clock. It says attending to or returning from any proceedings of Parliament. At that time, Parliament itself was not in session for us to talk about proceedings. It's not about being in Parliament or returning from Parliament. Proceedings. But you have already said.
But isn't it the case?
Let me educate you on this one. I beg you.
It's okay. That is fine.
I beg you.
But isn't it the case?
There was going to be a proceeding starting and advertised to start at 11.
But you see,
the Clerk of Parliament at 4:45 was preparing for that proceeding of Parliament. They were putting together the things for Parliament, for proceeding the Parliament.
A point of law.
So what are we talking about?
At the time you were in Parliament, were you MPs?
We're members of Parliament elect.
But you were not members
of Parliament. We're not MPs, yes.
So what does the Constitution say? Does it talk about members of Parliament elect or member of Parliament?
You even strengthened my case. So under what power was the clerk saying that he was going to stop a member of Parliament elect? There was no speaker. There was no speaker to have been served. There was no speaker to have then carried out that service.
Honourable Sam George and Honourable Kwemka, here's the point.
There was a clerk.
Here's the point.
There was a clerk.
It is not for Parliament.
Members of Parliament are not subservient to the clerk. The clerk of Parliament has only one power when the speaker is not available. The clerk of Parliament has only one power and one duty under the standing orders of Parliament and the Constitution to conduct the election of a speaker, not to rule on a court matter.
Just a minute. The point is, you do not determine whether or not the service is proper. Once that has come to your notice,
we can determine it is proper. Because who was the bailiff? Who was yes?
It comes to your notice.
There are lawyers here. Service is a procedural. Is procedural.
No.
It's guided by law.
No.
When the clerk was asked
so
who
you
served
go
him,
back to court
he said
to
it was
put
Ustaz
before
Hamza.
the court the evidence.
And that is why we said we will not abide by defective service.
But that's fine. Let me introduce Kenel Festus Obwaji. He's joining us.
After him, then I come to the military entry.
Kenel, can you hear me?
I can, please.
Very well. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
All the others.
Great.
Yes, we're here.
Sure. So I was going back to you, Honorable St. George. I asked you a question whether about the military coming in.
Yes.
So if you could just take it.
We had seen a number of altercations in the House without any question. That I will not deny. And it's on tape. Now, whilst we were in the House, the former Minister for Defense, Dominic Nitiwo, kept on telling us that if we did not behave ourselves, he was going to bring in the military. And we kept telling him he had no power to do so. Now let me state on authority that Mr. Dominic Nitiwo, former Defense Minister, Mr. Ambrose Derry, former Interior Minister, were the two people who stepped out of the chamber, went into the lobby of Parliament around the coffee shop area, and called Colonel Joseph Malik Punamani. Colonel Joseph Malik Punamani used to be the head of security at Gapoa, and until recently was moved to the Flagstaff House Annex.
Now you're making statements here that we cannot verify. Honorable St. George.
If you don't want us to talk about this, then tell me not to talk. But we saw soldiers.
Verify.
I spoke. Take the videos.
Okay.
I spoke personally to Colonel Punamani. I told him that his actions amounted to treason and that he was a coup maker.
Very well. On that note, we'll take a break.
So I made those points clear.
We have to take a break, Honorable St. George.
I told him to his face.
We'll continue with your submission. But like I said, those statements you're making really and truly ought to be verified. But we are not in a position
to... I don't think you have verified everything Yaopong or Pemka has said here.
Please. They're not speaking to matters of fact per se in every sense, but you are stating categorically.
Were you in Parliament?
We need to take a break.
Were you on the floor of Parliament? I was there. I spoke to the person. And you're telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. What facts again do you want? I was there. None of you here was there. Take up issues.
Eye Care and Vision Center is here with all your eye care solutions. Yes, Third Eye Care is at it again. Are your lenses becoming foggy because of wearing face masks or sitting in air-conditioned spaces? Are your eyes getting sore and tired after using the computer for prolonged periods? Are you struggling with light from oncoming cars and other vehicles when driving at night? Worry no more. Third Eye Care and Vision Center has all the right solutions for you. We have anti-fog and blue filtering lenses that solves it all. Third Eye Care and Vision Center also stocks all types of lenses, designer frames, sunglasses, and employs very well-trained, qualified, and licensed optometrists to provide all your eye care needs. Locate us at Airport Residential Area, close to the Association International School, opposite Mirage Residence, or Northridge, on the premises of Sunny FM, and close to the Kanda Overhead Bridge. Call us on 054-328-7008 or 026-646-2080. Third Eye Care and Vision Center, your total eye care solution.
The assurance that absolutely none can compare. The peace of mind that nothing could ever be better. The joy that comes with being free to be who you are. And the knowledge that where we're from can guide us to where we're going. Key, a tradition of smiles, a future that's bright. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
How safe is your environment from pathogens? How do we survive this new normal with bacteria and viruses everywhere? You can take charge of your environment by using Good Air Sans Humidifier with chlorine dioxide tablets to get rid of pathogens, including bacteria and viruses. You can use Good Air Sans Humidifiers in your homes and offices and be rest assured of protection against pathogens. Just set up the Good Air Sans humidifier in your space to disinfect the place continuously for virus and bacteria-free environment. Our devices work in both public and private spaces like schools, hotels, hospitals, churches, mosques, restaurants, salons, and homes to enjoy a nice family time. Good Air. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Smiles are one of the most important things we have. Globally, 1 in 2 children suffer from cavities. Pepsodent with maximum cavity protection repairs tiny holes before they become cavities. Because every smile matters.
Lady Circle. Your Saturday evenings are never the same when 4 intelligent ladies are on your screens talking about everything that has to do with women as we get into honest conversations, giveaways, and fun games.
Hi guys, this is Shatamishi,
Sissy Nassau, Zinel Zoo. I'm Juliet Ibrahim.
This is the Lady Circle.
Join the host of the Lady Circle. Keep watching the Lady Circle. The Lady Circle.
Keep watching the Lady Circle this and every Saturday live on TV3.
Let's get interactive on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hashtag the Lady Circle.
The Lady Circle, every Saturday, 6 p.m. on TV3. Brought to you by
Yaz Sanitary Pad.
Coronavirus is in abroad, not here.
More than 2,000 dead, tens of thousands infected.
The world has been brought to a standstill by the novel COVID-19, which has once again proven that our health is still our greatest asset. And our best bet for a long and healthy life is our lifestyle choices based on information we receive. That's why Vodafone Healthline is back.
Season 9 of Vodafone Healthline is here.
With some of the most experienced and trusted doctors to address your medical concerns by giving you essential guidelines on dieting, exercise, diagnosing, and treating illnesses to help you live a long and healthy life.
Vodafone Healthline shows every Sunday at 5 p.m. on TV3.
Ready?
Hey, we got loads of cash to give away right here on Family Feud TV3.
Victory! Victory! Victory!
Yeah, see, you can want her, but if she don't want you, we got problems. So you saw him early and went,
Sir?
Sir? Got to be there.
Yeah!
There is no way.
Never!
This party is over. Yes! Yes! Hell yeah.
Family Feud shows this Saturday at 8 p.m. and repeat on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. on TV3. Family Feud is brought to you by Malta Guinness. Enjoy a world of good. Treatment of cancer can be very expensive, but there is great hope for Ghanaian teachers.
So, cancer is a deadly disease. It's a deadly disease because the treatment involves a lot of money. And so, if you don't have the wherewithal to undergo the treatment, you will die. But we, as teachers, we know that there is a remedy for us.
You bring along your payslip, and then you also bring along your NAT identity card. And once that is established, you are given the treatment free of charge.
Made possible by the collaboration between the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, and the Sweden Ghana Medical Center, SGMC.
Some of our members still not aware that there is a facility like this here.
My wife also talked to her association, which is the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, and we were attended to promptly.
If you are a Ghanaian teacher and a member of NAT, you enjoy absolutely free treatment of cancer.
If you are a member, your spouse stands to benefit if she happens to suffer the disease. Your daughter, your son also stands to benefit if she also happens to contract the disease.
NAT Hour, a documentary of hope for the Ghanaian teacher, shows Wednesdays at 5:45 p.m. and Sundays at 1:30 p.m. only on TV3.
Hello, Ghana is the first semi-final of the National Genius Challenge. Which of these schools shall make their way to the finals of the National Genius Challenge? Libby Magri Preparatory School from Takwa in the Western region, Chila School from Hajo in the Greater Accra region, or Mount Olivet Methodist Academy from Dansoman in the Greater Accra region. Join us this Saturday at 2 p.m. on TV3 as we enjoy this great competition. National Genius Challenge, developing intellectuals.
Powered by Uniwest Foundation with sponsorship from Best Western Premier Hotel, Bayport Savings and Loans, Bright Schools, ISONS, Institute of ICT Professional Ghana, Prospectus Ghana Limited,
MJ Seafoods, Anasco Skills and Digicom Engineering Limited, Extra Class.
Supported by
The National Juniors Challenge shows every Saturday at 2 p.m. on TV3.
Welcome back. You're still watching and listening to the Key Points live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. So we have in the studio Honorable Joseph Kwemka. We also have Mr. Yao Apong. We have Honorable Sam George. And on Zoom, we have Colonel Festus Abuaje. We're currently looking at the particular issue of the military going into the chamber of Parliament to restore calm or order when some rancor came up during proceedings in the House. Just before the break, Honourable Sam George was making his submissions, and I would allow him to continue. Honourable, carry on.
Thank you. Like I said, based on the questions you asked me,
yes.
and this are entirely my
we'll try
position.
To verify from them,
yes,
yeah.
You're free to verify. But like I said, Honorable Dominic Neto, who was a former defense minister, was the one. And what I know from being in Parliament that day was the Marshal of Parliament actually made efforts to stop the military from entering the chamber. Because, you see, Parliament, apart from the Marshal's unit, and the Marshal's unit has a lieutenant colonel, in fact, 3 lieutenant colonels in the Marshal's unit, and has 57 men. So it is not a small unit. We've got the Parliamentary Police Protection Unit as well.
And they couldn't restore calm.
Or them to supplement.
No, the Marshal actually, the Marshal actually did not want the military in the chamber. Let me put that on record.
But would you say the Marshals were able to deal with this? Because we watching on TV saw total chaos.
But Abner, every time there was chaos, for want of a better phrase, borrowing your word, it was resolved. You see, and it was resolved by the Marshal's unit. Look, what simply should have happened was that the government side, that makes you comfortable, the government side.
Which one is that?
The minority, MPP, James and his people, should not have come into the chamber that day with an entitlement mentality that they were in government, they were going to do this, this is how they wanted things to go. We came in there with one mentality as defenders of the Constitution of this Republic. When someone says, when Alban says, it's the soldiers who brought calm, that's not true.
I asked a question.
The action,
emphatically.
Okay, fine. Well, the answer to your question is no. We sang and hooted the soldiers out. And I personally spoke to Colonel Punamani and said to him he was a coup maker and he will be charged for treason because his actions were wrong. I spoke to Kwesi Fori and asked him to get out of our chamber because they had no business in our chamber. What brought peace was when, after that action, after they realized that we would not be intimidated by the military, Chairman Sabons and his entire leadership bench rose and went into conclave with our leadership bench.
Very well.
It is that understanding that allowed us. And you realize, even when they came back and we started the voting process, issues of how people were voting, and here, let me give credit to Honorable Kennedy Ejopon and Honorable Katie Hammond.
Your best friend.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with him on the communications committee. We're very close now. Yeah. You know, he was spot on. Because he said, look, guys, we say we are doing secret ballot. Nobody needs to show his ballot. And so for me, Let me salute the 3 individuals, 3 members of parliament on the ticket of the NPP who voted for Mr. Bagbin. You stood up and were counted. You stood up in defense of the Constitution.
Show their faces.
We know you, we celebrate you, and we congratulate you.
It's supposed to be a secret ballot, so they don't need to.
So that's why we cannot mention their names.
That's fine,
because it's a secret ballot.
So that's fine.
The voting is secret.
Thank you very much.
And so we celebrate them.
Thank you very much.
No, 30 seconds. You see, the actions and activities that went on in Parliament highlight and strengthen our case in the Supreme Court. The abusive use of the military by agents of state in an election process was on display for everybody to see. You now understand what happened at Techiman South.
That's.
But what happened in Parliament?
That's one.
There's this question you posed to my good friend, lawyer, and then to Sam George about the action of the military, whether it amounted to a coup. It's a very fundamental thing.
Please hold on to that. Let me quickly switch to Honorable, Colonel Festus Abadi, who's been on there for some time now. But definitely, I would want you to address that issue. So let's go to Colonel Festus Abadi. Colonel, can you hear me?
I can.
Right. Thank you for being patient with us. I believe you saw what played out in Parliament on the 7th of, the wee hours of the 7th of January, when the 8th Parliament was, in the process of being inaugurated. The military walked in at some point, ostensibly to restore calm or order, and a number of issues have come up. You looking at that from the point of view of a security analyst, what did you make of that? What was your reaction to that?
Well, thanks once again for having me. Let me acknowledge my very wonderful colleagues in the studio. Indeed, listening to the Honourable Member of Parliament, Sam George, inclined to, reinforce my belief that there must be investigations into the whole chain of events that culminated into the presence of the military in the House. I say that because, contrary to Lawyer Alban's view that coups are not possible, I want to remind him that coups are very possible. So we need to be very, very careful that we don't mismanage our governance system and our democracy to create conditions for coups to happen. But as to it being possible, it is very, very possible. And there are recent cases in the South region to tell us that it is possible. But let's leave that case, we'll have it at another time. Again, we should not judge the appropriateness and or the lawfulness, vice versa, of the military presence on the eventual outcome, which he termed as successful. I want to dispute that a wrong approach, a wrong procedure cannot be justified on the basis that the outcome was correct. We need to be very, very clear about that. My thinking is that in the run-up to the SONA, the dissolution of the 7th Parliament, the inauguration of the 8th Parliament, the swearing in of the President or the President-elect, the police had informed the public that they had done an assessment and they were going to deploy 6,000 police officers in order to provide security for this chain of processes. The question we want to ask is, where were the police in sufficient numbers with the requisite equipment or appropriate equipment, some of which we saw in the situation that developed around the EC's compound or office when the NDC said they wanted to serve some letter or whatever on the EC. The question is, had the police exhausted its capacity to warrant the presence of the military? You see, security is security, but security can be disaggregated. So there is security that relates to external aggression and security that relates to internal security. The situation in Parliament was not an internal security issue. Parliament had not been invaded by terrorists who had held members of Parliament hostage and were threatening maybe to kill them and blow up the facility. What was happening in Parliament was precisely a law and order issue around altercations, punching, pushing, shoving, ballot snatching, and the likes. Now, if we're saying that in this democracy, in this state, we don't have police capabilities, assuming that is necessary, to handle that kind of situation, and in all circumstances, we must invite the military to resolve such situations. Then I think some of us, have a problem. Then we need to look also at the procedures, by which the military is invited to play a role in internal security. One clear role, for instance, is Kokumba Nanumba conflict. That is an internal security situation. Classically, that is taught at the Ghana Military Academy, where the military goes in to pacify the country, create stability, and hand over to the law enforcement agencies. Was the situation in Parliament tantamount to that kind of ethnic conflict? The answer is no. You see, so, first of all, the 3 officers plus the 57, and this is a piece of education apart from the Honorable Sam George, should be the frontline law enforcement agencies as far as any security issues are concerned in Parliament. If for some reason, and maybe in this case, they had not adequately estimated the situation or anticipated, and therefore might not have stood by sufficient number, all 57 cannot be on duty at the same time. They are human beings, and there could be other exigencies also. Where were the police, who have the constitutional mandate to maintain law and order and protect property and lives? Where were they? Based on the assessment that was done that 6,000 were going to be required. Did they have 25? Did they have 50? Did they have 100? You see, if the military was warranted to come in, then it makes every good reason to argue that the police should have come in first to survey the situation from the marshals. And if the police could not, for any reason, manage the situation, then you could say that the military should come in. Procedurally, you don't invite militaries through telephone calls. In fact, I have taken pains to emphasize that there must be a statement, written statement. In this case, the marshals or the chief marshal, the sergeant at arms, or whoever, should have written on a paper and signed requesting the police to come in and take over the situation.
Exactly.
If that had happened, assuming, and the police had deemed that they couldn't handle the situation, the most senior police officer at that material time, at that locality, should also write a statement inviting the military to come in. Now, all of this is on the assumption that prior to this situation, there had been a certain security arrangement laying out the concept of providing security for the processes, which will involve all of these 3 elements of security agencies. So something is wrong. And what is wrong is that democracies are not managed internally by military deployments. And we need to be very, very careful. The trend that I'm seeing is that almost every incident in this country, be it Domifasi type land dispute, be it election security, be it whatever, be it escorts of certain prophets, we need the military to go and, provide security. But that's not the role of the democrat. That's not the role of the military. In democracies, let's go to the constitution and look at the language that is used to craft the mandate of the military and the mandate of the police.
Right.
The situation in Parliament was one of law and order, protection of the lives and properties, first of all, the MPs and Parliament, and to restore order for the process to go on. Right. So as Lawyer Pon explained earlier, we didn't have a constitutional exigency where by a certain time there was no Parliament, no speaker, no swearing in of who and this and that and that. it was very inappropriate.
Right. Now,
for the military should have walked into the chamber. It doesn't happen in democracies. And the Capitol incident tells us clearly how democracies behave.
Right.
When the National Guard is the reserves of the American armed forces, which we don't have in this country. When the National Guard was called in, you saw how they had deployed to physically protect the Capitol building, leaving the frontline policing to other Capitol Police or Federal Police or DC Police to contain those who had invaded the building. And I believe inside the building, other police reinforcements were at work searching the offices.
Very well.
In democracies, the military is not deployed to maintain law and order.
Very well.
And that is the danger we are running, that we are turning the Ghana Armed Forces into frontline law enforcement agencies.
Very well.
Which they are not, because the Constitution does not give them that mandate.
Right. Now, in the circumstances of the case, the matter we are looking at, which is a matter that happened in Parliament, in the scheme of things, the first point of call would or should have been the marshals.
Yes.
But from what it appears, that didn't happen, or that they were overwhelmed. I would want to know from you, from your estimation, what you saw in Parliament, was it something that should have overwhelmed the marshals? Because I'm thinking what we've seen then suggests that we could see, similar incidents play out in the future. And if so, we wouldn't want to see what we saw happen this time around, where the military had to step in. But we would want to see the marshals adequately deal with that. If that's the case, would you recommend some, if you like, arrangements regarding the current state of affairs in terms of the marshals of Parliament? Because at the end of the day, they are to deal with these situations until it escalates. And that's the point I'm asking. Do you think the situation as happened in Parliament was so overwhelming to the extent that the marshals couldn't have dealt with it?
I wouldn't think so. The answer could be yes, it could be no. First of all, I think it was Lawyer Pon who educated us that
okay.
Exchanges, throwing tables around and so on and so forth, arguing, getting up, crossing the lines and so on. These are normal. So when you see these things happening in Parliament, it doesn't mean that law and order has broken down. That's not the interpretation. Indeed, in other jurisdictions, under those circumstances, would have seen pistols drawn in Parliament and weapons fired and casualties on the floor of Parliament and parliamentary furniture destroyed, thrown at each other. That is what you call a serious security situation. But on the assumption that the marshals had been overwhelmed by the numbers, 275 parliamentarians, and how they were shoving at each other and so on, my argument is that the police had told us that they had a certain concept of operation revolving around 6,000 of them. How many were deployed to Parliament? You see, if military can walk into the chamber, then probably it is better for the police to have walked in there. So where were the police who have the mandate constitutionally to maintain law and order within the state, including Parliament, assuming that it is necessary? Because ordinarily, Parliament, I call it hallowed grounds. You just don't walk in like a military parade square. Even when it is empty, you don't cross, because there is some sacredness, sanctity attached to that. So going forward, police must educate us, in fact, inform the public into detail about their concept of operations for some of these public activities. And the role of the military must be known. Prior to the elections, I said somewhere that what is the rules of engagement of the Ghana Armed Force, or even the Election Security Task Force? And somebody had asked me, do you want them to tell the public? Why not? After all, what are rules of engagement? When the soldiers walked in there, were their magazines charged? Were the magazines on the weapon? Had rounds being loaded into the chamber? Where were the safety catches? Were they at safe or were they at fire? The parliamentarians needed to know that if the military will come in, they will come in under such and such circumstances, and they will go by restoring law and order in this or that manner. You see, we should not assume that civilians are daft and they don't understand. In fact, the whole idea of rules of engagement starts from whether there had been an executive order for the military to be involved. The involvement of the military in the situation in Parliament is not of the cuff. It is not at the spur of the moment that somebody says, oh, the situation is getting out of hand. Look, if it had been a terrorist situation, yes, but don't let us confuse that kind of internal security situation with what was happening in Parliament.
Very well. Thank you for that.
For parliamentarians, let's leave them that leverage, to have that kind of altercation. It's part of a parliamentary culture from one jurisdiction to the other. And when we see that, as we say, Abuabia Bodam, but when Oponko, friends, which animal is that? The cow starts running, they say the cow is mad. No. After all, one of you said that parliamentarians are also citizens of Ghana. They don't change because they have become parliamentarians. They exhibit the same tendencies, good and bad, of all human beings.
Very well.
And we should allow them that room. We saw how they were able to mend fences, and carry on with their business, just as Capitol did. Congress resumed and certified the presidency of, the president-elect and his vice.
Very well. Thanks for that, Colonel Festus Abuaje. Kindly stay on. We will be getting back to you in a short while when we discuss the snatching of ballot boxes and snatching of ballot sheets and all of that. So please hang on with us. We will come back to you. Honorable Pemka, before Colonel came in, you had wanted to touch on the bit about the military's intervention being tantamount to a coup. But obviously, you would also want to go on.
I want to say that Pong knows very well, and you know that for you to be able to establish crime, there must have been intent. So, by the conduct of the military, for you to say that it amounted to coup or attempted coup and etc., then you should establish intent on their part, whether by their conduct they intended to cause coup or attempt coup and etc. And I think that if you put it to that test, it will fail. Why? Because after some time, they withdrew. So it means that they came in with one purpose, to maintain order.
After being booted, according to
of the House.
Honorable Sam Jones' account.
You may discuss the propriety or otherwise of their coming into the chamber. That's another topic altogether. And as Colonel Festus Abuaje has stated, he is condemning it outright. And he says that the procedure was not even followed and etc. But remember that the action of the parliamentarians itself was spontaneous. It wasn't something that took a longer period and started. No, it was spontaneous. And you could see the kicking and the shoving and whatever was going on. My brother Sam George has said that Parliament is a master of its own rules. But I don't think that we should be masters of violence and mayhem. That's not it. We should delink the two. So the military may have come in inappropriately. But what invited it? We should not wash that under the carpet. Otherwise, we will get it wrong. Because for every situation, there must be a certain reaction. And the reaction may be wrong. But a certain situation invited the military into the system. And for me, what we should also be interrogating is, when they got into that system, when they got into the chamber, what was their conduct? Did they start beating up MPs? Did they start attacking the MPs? Answer is no. We all saw what they did. They cordoned off a certain area and they served as a buffer between one side and the other. And after some time, they withdrew. So we should be interrogating their conduct itself. And for me, the military in this particular case, you may condemn their entry into the chamber, but their conduct in there was professional.
Very well. I think another issue that we'll need to look at also at some point would be the capacity of the marshals of parliament. Because like I said, this will not be the first and last. We hope, well, it is the last. But like we see in other jurisdictions, I mean, like, compare this to what happens in, say, South Africa. That is something else. But that doesn't mean that we cannot get there.
Yes.
And so if we can, there's a potential that we might as well prepare our marshals to be able to deal with the situation.
Agreed. Yeah, I saw on tape, and I don't know whether you saw it, one of the marshals flying like somebody threw him away.
Exactly.
I saw that, and I even know the MP. He threw him, virtually, practically threw the marshal away, and he flew on into the ground. So it means that we have to, going forward, we have to strengthen that unit. Because the three he's talking about, yes, they are all colonels, but they are all retired. You know, most of them, they normally retire before they get that contract with Parliament. I think that while we are condemning whatever the military may have done and looking at the way forward, we should also appeal to our MPs. Colonel has said that those are all part of parliamentary practices, but I don't think we should encourage excesses. Excesses are not good for us at all.
On that note, we will take a look at how some of the members of Parliament reacted or how they behaved, because we saw that happen and we would want to look at that. So let's take a look at that. So this is clearly right where Honorable Esla was pushed off her seat, and she got into that altercation. She was in a seat, and she was pushed off that seat. Right. So, what do you make of that, Mr. Pong?
Well, I mean, I think, as we've been saying, these are all avoidable occurrences, but they have occurred. You see, there is also because of some misunderstanding that we used to hold about members of Parliament, and which I'm saying that by the grace of God, we have almost gotten there, where the person who is the president may not have the members from the same party as him being in the majority. And by the grace of God, God in his own scheme ensured that there's parity, with one person now holding the fort, as it were. This situation wouldn't have occurred if, for example, NDC had 140 and MPP had less. But God perhaps set a test for us to see the extent to which our members of Parliament themselves will appreciate the position and the functions that are assigned to them. You understand? And you see, it may happen elsewhere, but we do not, as it were, in most cases, alienate ourselves from the cultural practices and the customary law that we are used to. First of all, no matter what a woman, the extent to which a woman may infuriate you, I think that there is a different way to deal with a situation involving a woman, not to deal with a woman, than with a man. So all these things about taking off a seat from a woman and then she also trying to assert her right, these could have been avoided if we were generally alive to our own customary law practices as well, which at all times should guide us. And that is why we sometimes say that we should not too much be in a hurry to copy practices that may be conducive to certain environments. But that generally, when we go home, if this thing had happened in your own village or community, especially against a woman, I'm very sure that by the time you leave your village, you may have slaughtered like 10 sheep already.
Honorable Sam George, could this have been avoided?
If Lawyer Pong is talking about our customary law, maybe he didn't see what happened in the chamber. I was in the chamber. No decent woman in our customary law would have allowed this to happen.
But I'm asking a question. Could this have been avoided?
Let me explain to you.
Honorable Sam George, could this have been avoided?
Listen.
No,
exactly. If Esla Owusu had behaved honorably, we wouldn't have been here. Why? Everybody on the MPP side went and found a seat on the left of the speaker. She came and stood for 20 minutes on our side. Nobody minded her. Then she went and sat on the clerk's seat and said that's where she would sit. Honorable Cletus Avoga had been sitting there with Collins Dowda. Then he gets up, leaves his phone and his diary, gets up to go and grant City TV an interview. Then she quickly goes to sit on his chair. When he comes back, he says to her, "Can I have my seat?" And she flings her hands at him and says, "Leave." And that's why they came and said, "Get off the seat. You are not supposed to sit here." So per our customary laws, your mother will not go and sit on your father's chair.
But
she will not do that. So you see,
that is
no,
chauvinistic.
it is
when
not
you go to a
chauvinistic.
funeral, you said that
you are the one who brought out customary laws.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Would you see a woman in your village go and sit on a chief's chair?
That is being
if there is a stool for the queen mother, the queen mother will sit on that stool. This seat
was that where she was supposed to sit?
This seat can only be the seat for a man and the other for a woman.
Somebody was sitting there. It's not chauvinistic.
Let's move on.
If you want us to call a spade, let's call it a spade, not a big spoon.
Parliament snatching ballot boxes, snatching ballot papers, and all of that. Let's see that. I mean, this was something that was aired live, and so we're doing a playback of that to help with our discussion.
Carlos Ahinkra.
This guy.
So this is also.
The House was thrown into a state of confusion. The leaders went back into conclave to determine the way forward. The clerk returned and announced long-standing MP for Nadoli Kaleo, Alban Sumana Bagbin.
I have the honor to declare Honorable Alban Kingsford Sumana Bagbin as Speaker-elect.
After accepting the speakership, Alban Bagbin supervised the election of the first and second deputy speakers. The 8th Parliament elected Bekwai MP Joel Sewuso as the first deputy speaker and the independent member of Parliament for the Fomena constituency as the second deputy speaker. After the swearing in of the MPs elect, the speaker emphatically stressed the need to be fair and hold the constitution in high esteem.
Myself to the will of this House and pledge to serve my dear country, to serve you, and to serve all Ghanaians faithfully to the best.
Right, so that was Honorable Alban Bagbin, the Speaker Right Honorable Alban Bagbin, Speaker of Parliament, the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic. And that was his, I believe, his acceptance, speech there. But before that, you saw that interesting display of, how should I call it? Athleticism, where people were running helter-skelter and all of that. We have videos of MPs kicking the ballot booths as well. We are looking for that and we'll play that again. And we're doing this for a purpose. Obviously, we're showing exactly what happened, and that is to people who missed the live telecast of events on the day, because we're looking at a very serious issue of how Parliament proceedings panned out on the day. But before those pictures came in, I was asking Honorable Pemka his thoughts on all of that.
Well, Abna, again, let me say that those ones, I will preliminarily say that they are very unfortunate events, and they form a dark part of our parliamentary history, and that cannot be in contestation at all. They form a dark part of our parliamentary history, one, because at that particular moment, millions of Ghanaians were glued to their TV sets, and they were watching what was going on. Some young people perhaps witnessed that for the first time, right? And so to feed them with such very, very despicable breakfast at that moment was most unfortunate and condemnable, whichever person or group of persons were involved. And we have to proceed on that premise, condemn that in no uncertain terms, that no amount of provocation or disagreement should lead to such altercation on the floor of Parliament. That is the fundamental basis of my submission. And I say this because if you look at some of the, you haven't been able to show some of the scenes. You've shown the one involving Carlos Ahinkra, but you haven't shown the others.
We'll be showing that.
I saw something that I thought for once that, with the greatest respect, we're practicing some kung fu or something. I couldn't believe it. People kicking ballot boxes and involving in very, very dangerous conduct on the floor of Parliament, all in the name of strengthening our democracy. I think it was a dark part of our history, and there's no dispute about that. Because you see, whatever you do, you have to exercise maximum circumspection and restraint in the midst of all provocation. Otherwise, assuming that what those other persons engaged in, kicking ballot boxes and snatching and then running around, all the others, the 275, got very upset and were all engaged in such a thing. You could have imagined the type of chaotic nature that we would have actually... And I believe that God is on our side as a nation. Because that situation could have led to a situation where there will be no speaker. And there will be a spillover. There's no speaker, and there's no swearing in of Parliament, and so there's no swearing in of MPs, and so no swearing in of the president. Then adventurers could take advantage. Could take you never know what adventurers can take advantage of. And so, what I would like to commend highly is the quick resolution by leadership to restore order, leading to the swearing in of His Excellency the President without the creation of a vacuum in our country. And that is commendable. However, I still condemn in no uncertain terms the conduct of those who were involved in kicking, destroying, snatching, or whatever description you will give to what happened on the floor. Please, in parliamentary practice, there are disagreements, I agree. In parliamentary practice, there are ways of resolving issues, but certainly not what I'm seeing.
Very well.
This was most despicable.
Right. Now, I mean, talking about how indespicable that is, do we have the pictures or the videos for the kicking of the ballot papers? Very well. We're trying to pull that up, but before we get that, we can also raise issues about was the situation such that the stakes were so high that people would do anything possible? I'm told we have the footage now where some members of Parliament were kicking the ballot booths, the ballot boxes, and all of that. Whoa. Okay. So that is, whoa, who just kicked that ballot booth? I'm not sure exactly who that is in there. But, Sam George, who kicked that ballot booth? Do you know?
Because he's seen
Honorable,
the person.
do you know?
He says he's seen the person now.
You didn't see, but you were there, so I'm hoping you would know.
But it gives an idea of how members of Parliament
Exactly.
are prepared to defend themselves.
Right.
So because
That
the kung fu, expertise, I'm happy about it. I mean,
let me read the Constitution.
No.
Article 3.4 of the Constitution. All citizens of Ghana shall have the right and duty at all times, A, to defend this Constitution, and in particular, to resist any person or group of persons seeking to commit any of the acts referred to in clause 3 of this article.
So,
before we go there, please let me go to Colonel. Okay. Very well. Honorable Sam George, please carry on.
And so, for me, I salute everybody who took steps and acted in Parliament to ensure that the constitutional provision of secret balloting for the election of a Speaker of Parliament was upheld. These are national heroes who defended our Constitution. And Chief, I was in the chamber. I saw how close our democracy differed on the line. You had all the media houses that mattered in this country in the chamber. You had military tanks surrounding the precincts of parliament. There was no president at the time.
Which I disagree.
There was no vice president at the time.
Which I disagree.
There was no speaker at the time. The Chief Justice was present in parliament. You think it was for nothing that as soon as the military entered the chamber, the Chief Justice ran away from parliament?
He ran?
Yes, he ran into his vehicle. His vehicle even took off without the doors being closed. You know why? You know why? You know why? Because nobody knew what the soldiers could do and have the Chief Justice in the chamber of parliament. Look, all he needed was for that colonel to have a rush of hard blood and go and put on the speaker's microphone and say that he's taking over power.
Very well. You made reference
That's
to
how
Article
irresponsible
3.4.
the action of bringing them in was.
I think we need to address that. But before that, let's go over to Colonel Festus Abuaji. Colonel, can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Great. I believe you saw the pictures and the videos we were showing.
A couple of times, if not more.
Pardon me?
Yes, I have seen those pictures.
Right. And your thoughts on that?
Yeah. First of all, let me latch onto one of the remarks by my very good friend, should I say former honorable?
You're still an honorable. Once an honorable, always an honorable.
Once an honorable, always an honorable. So Honorable Penka. What invited the military into the chamber was not at all the situation that was evolving. It is precisely that in our country during the Fourth Republic, we have been developing a certain subculture that the military must be frontline in all matters of law enforcement. That was the reason why the military came in. If that had not been the case, the military would have been nowhere near that vicinity or that scene. Second point, on the case of the female or woman member of parliament, no, I heard the Honorable Kojo Okonkwo on the night or in the night when the situation was evolving, saying that they had gone into camp and the leadership had decided that they were not going to challenge the NDC to create a situation where the solemnity of the occasion would be eroded. So they had decided on block that they will go and take their seats on the other side. In military terms, when command takes a decision, all subordinates comply. Why is it that one member out of the lot, 137, decided that, go to hell, I don't respect the leadership decision or the common consensus by the 137 NPP NDC? That was also a contributory factor. If she had gone or they had gone to sit on the other side quietly, probably the trigger for the violence might not have started, and therefore the course of events might have been different. Now, lastly, the ballot box. I've tried to put the significance of the parliamentary ballot in perspective. It is hinged on the premise that in a democracy, there is only one way of changing governments and selecting representatives, and that is simply democratic elections. So we've gone for the public elections to elect a president and members of parliament. But the process doesn't stop there. The democratic elections continue into parliament, where due to the chain of, if you like, political command of this country, at some point in time, a speaker could become the head of state. So what was happening in parliament was part of the political democratic architecture of this country. It was as important as the public elections that we went to. And therefore, any infractions like snatching ballot box or snatching ballot papers and chewing and swallowing some, disrupting the process, were all precisely undermining the democratic project. And they've got to be looked at seriously, which is why I started by saying that we need to investigate those situations. Because as Honorable Penka has been at pains to explain, we could have, taken ourselves into a constitutional crisis. Well, come the morning of the 7th, there was no speaker, and by extension of that, no members of parliament, no swearing in of this and that. What happened in parliament? He's condemned it. I don't want to use the same words because I'm not in the same league as he is, but we, the public, the citizens, want to know what really happened in parliament. Who was responsible for what? Why were the police not there? You've mentioned that probably now we need to reduce the strength of the parliamentary marshals, the 3 plus 57, and maybe increase them to the size of a company, which will be about 120. But beyond that, why were the police not there? And if the police were there, why did it take their absence, to call the military into the...
Right. I
want to end by saying that I take exception from the view that the military are frontline law enforcement officers. They are not.
Very well.
And this subculture that we are developing and reinforcing all the time, anything we want to do in this country, including even inauguration of president, we have come to call something ceremonial ADCs. How did it start? It started with the revolution, when because it was a military regime, Chairman Rawlings needed all his service chiefs to stand before him as a sign of allegiance. Is it the same thing that happens in other democracies? In fact, previously, they used to stand physically behind him along as the subordinate ceremonial ADC, until such time that somebody thought, oh, these are elderly people. Some of them had done 30 years, 40 years of service. They don't have the strength of lieutenants. So let them sit down. But do we need ceremonial ADCs? Or should everybody come into the inauguration chamber or hall to signify that we are all citizens, we commit ourselves to the democratic project that we have bought into? So there are many lingering tendencies, including, let me mention for purpose of argument, that it takes a brigadier to stand behind a president. A brigadier? Why a brigadier? It's absolutely unnecessary. So let's learn, and I've used a word with a military term, clean break. From 1992, we should have found mechanisms to keep the soldiers in barracks until such time that you have situations like Kukumba and Numba, or you have a terrorist attack, or you have a genuine, credible Western Togoland escalation. Then you bring the military in. We must not create an armed forces contrary to constitutional provisions that become a type of police force or police service. It's a danger.
Thank you very much.
So let me end by saying that there must be investigations into the whole gamut of the chain of events, the triggers, the prolongation factors, the escalatory factors, and so on and so forth. Let us know who was responsible for what. Let us know who failed in their decision and in their planning and in their preparedness. This will help us going forward to make sure that come 2024, we don't end up, probably with a worse situation than this.
Very well. Thank you very much, Colonel Festus Aboagye. He is a security analyst, and we've had him join us via Zoom. We appreciate your time, Colonel Festus Aboagye, and we don't say
thank you.
Thank you. We'll be going on to look next at the person, Right Honourable Alban Bagbin, who emerged as the elected Speaker of Parliament, obviously after all that happened. And as Mr. Alban would say, ultimately, all that was needed to be done eventually happened. We got the Speaker elected, 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic duly inaugurated, then the swearing in of the President and Vice President also followed. And so constitutionally, we met all the requirements. And so we have a profile of the Right Honourable Alban Bagbin. We'll take that and then return to the panelists to see whether or not Right Honourable Alban Bagbin would help steer the affairs of this very interesting parliament we have. A novel situation happening where we have no majority or minority, properly so-called, in parliament. How do we navigate our way? So let's take a listen. Let's have a look at the profile of the Speaker of the 8th Parliament.
Born on 24th September 1957, his parents were Mr. Sansuni Bagbin and Mrs. Margaret B. Bagbin. He hails from Sombo in the Upper West region of Ghana. He started his education at an early age at the Roman Catholic Primary School, Sombo, did his second cycle education at the Wa Secondary School, and ended at the Tamale Secondary School, where he earned his ordinary level and advanced level certificates. Bagbin is a graduate of the University of Ghana from 1977 to 1980 and the Ghana Law School from 1980 to 1982. He holds an executive master's in governance and leadership from the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA. The outgoing Member of Parliament for the Nadoli-Kalio constituency from the Upper West region has held a number of positions in Ghana's Parliament since 1994. In the first Parliament of the Fourth Republic, he was made the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Subsidiary Legislation and vice chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Mines and Energy, as well as member of the Committee on Local Government and Rural Development. From 1995, Mr. Bagbin has also been a member of a group known as Parliamentarians for Global Action, PGA, and a member of the International Law and Human Rights Program of the PGA. From 1996 to 2001, he was appointed chairman of the Advisory Committee on the Restructuring of the Water Sector, Ministry of Works and Housing, while between 1997 to 2001, he was a member of the National Media Commission. In the second Parliament of the Fourth Republic, Bagbin was the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, with oversight responsibilities for the Commission of Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Electoral Commission, National Commission on Civic Education, Office of Parliament, and Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. He was also the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee from year 2000 to 2005. He was also the vice chairman of the Appointments Committee of Parliament. He became the majority leader in Ghana's parliament in year 2009. His international profile is rich. He has also been a member of the African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption from 1999 to 2005, a founding member of the Global Organization of Parliamentarians Against Corruption from 2002 till date, elected Vice President, Standing Committee on Democracy and Human Rights, Interparliamentary Union, and elected member of the International Council for Parliamentarians for Global Action. Alban Bagbin is presently the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament and has been penciled down by the minority as the Speaker for the 8th Parliament of the Republic.
Right, so that is our Speaker of Parliament, the Right Honourable Alban Bagbin. He served as MP for the Nadoli-Kalio constituency for 28 years. So since 92, he held that position all through till the end of the 7th Parliament. And now his efforts obviously have been crowned with this position of Speaker of Parliament. Indeed, the longest serving MP under the Fourth Republic. And he was the second Deputy Speaker of the 7th Parliament. So a man of many, many achievements and many credentials and a lot of expectations in respect of how this 8th Parliament would turn out, obviously because of the novel situation we find ourselves in. Honourable Pemkale, if I may start with you. Your thoughts on the choice of Honourable Bagbin? And perhaps, do you see this, his choice of, the selection or election of him, do you think that amounts to a rejection of Mr. Former Speaker Michael Quay, or perhaps a revolt against the NPP leadership, or perhaps both?
Well, thank you very much. If I delve deep into some of your things, I'll be going into a world of conjecture because I can't go into the minds of people to know what they're thinking. And so I will restrain myself and restrict myself to specific things that I know of. The person, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, as I have come to know him. As an inspiration to young people. There's no doubt about that. I have been so close to him in the last 4 years that I have been in Parliament, because I tried to learn from him and to also learn from my leader, Oseche Mensabon. So I have been very close to the two of them because I wanted to learn the parliamentary procedures and practices. But on a number of occasions that I've interacted, including a day I flew with him, Honorable Smana Kingsford Bagbin, from Tamale to Accra. And the interactions I had with him, he's a great personality. There's no dispute about that. And he's an objective-minded person. Mind you, I was telling an NDC friend of mine that if their expectation is that he's going to show party colors in what he's doing, then they are going to get disappointed. He's a fair-minded person who would like to leave a legacy. And I don't think he would like to be a poodle of anybody. And he will never be, because knowing who he is, he's very stern and all that. And looking at his academic credentials and work experience and all that, he would like to leave a mark behind. And so he will do what will be in the interest of the state and nation Ghana, and not what will be the service to any individual or party or group of persons. So I will expect the Honorable Kingsford Bagbin, Right Honorable Kingsford Bagbin, to bring to bear that 28 incredible years of experience as a member of Parliament. He's an institution. I think that all through our democracy, he's the only person who has sat in all our Parliament from 93 till date. He's the only person. We have two other persons currently in Parliament who were in the first Parliament as well. But along the line, they lost out. I remember the Honorable Cletus Avoka and then the Honorable Collins Dauda. They lost along the line and came back. But he's been in every Parliament from 1993. And that is an incredible person. We have to even learn from him how he managed this. Some of us had 4 years and it sounded like 20. Very, very difficult to manage the people and all that. And for him to be there for 28 years, he deserves all the commendation. I know in 4 years, somebody will equal that record. The majority leader, Honorable Oseche Mensabonso, will equal that record in 4 years. But before then, he stands out.
Sure.
And it's no wonder that just after stepping out as second deputy speaker,
he just slots
the
in
next
there.
moment, he rises, he jumps the first deputy speaker, and on top of the ladder, there he climbs. And I think that it was divine.
Sure.
And as my brother said off record, I think it was the work of God for a purpose for Ghana at this particular moment. But the question as to whether it was a rejection of Professor Michael Quay, I dare not answer it because I'm incompetent to do that.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm absolutely incompetent because I was not one of the voters, and so I didn't take part in deciding why he should not be speaker. But what I can say is that it only tells us that our democracy is moving towards a certain direction. Because if somebody told me that an MPP member of Parliament was going to vote against the choice of the party as Speaker of Parliament, I will not believe you. That is why when these people were singing and jubilating and indicating that they were insisting on secret ballot, I told a friend of mine who was seated by me, hey, there must be something boiling. Because why were they insisting that it must be secret ballot?
But the question though, Honourable, was it the case that they had to insist? The Constitution provides for that, and standing orders say that it's a clear thing, secret ballot. So should there have even been a consideration of something else?
Madam, there are, we say we are masters of our own rules. There are circumstances in Parliament as a member in the 4 years, he knows, that we had to do that. But look, the whip system is working. But in this particular one, they insisted and ensured that it was carried through to its logical conclusion because they knew what they had done behind closed doors. So what I will only say is that it's a lesson for the leadership of the New Patriotic Party going forward and in future elections, that our leadership in Parliament and our leadership as a party should make sure that whatever decision we take, maybe we whip everybody online and then we go ahead and do that. Otherwise, nobody ever anticipated the outcome. Nobody anticipated this.
The interesting thing, though, is that some may say, yes, whilst this occurrence may not be necessarily in the interest of the party, it is in the interest of the general, society or the country. Because here we have a situation where, contrary to what has been the precedent, if you like, or the norm,
yes,
you have a speaker coming from the party that constitutes the executive. Now you have a situation where you have the contrary, and that obviously would help.
Now, His Excellency the President alluded to that in his inaugural address.
Sure.
He said this is the first time since our Fourth Republic got underway that we are having such a situation. And maybe going forward, if this experiment, I'll call it an experiment, if it succeeds, maybe it will guide us in our future conduct going forward as a nation.
Very well. Yes, Mr.
Yes, so but I differ a bit in terms of the last question and the answer. The fact is that our Constitution does not provide that for a person to qualify to be a speaker, he must be a member of any political party. The Constitution is very clear that Article 95(1), there shall be a Speaker of Parliament who shall be elected by the members of Parliament from among members who are members of Parliament, for among persons who are members of Parliament, or who are qualified to be elected as members of Parliament. So for a start, there is nothing in the Constitution that states that the Speaker must of necessity be elected from one side of the so-called divide. It is different in what I will come to. And so, Right Honorable Bagbin cannot be seen to be an NDC representative or an NDC speaker. He is a speaker elected by the people of Ghana through their representatives. It doesn't matter whether majority or minority. It is the same as the president.
But otherwise, we all know where he's coming from.
I'm looking at the Constitution. So, as far as we are concerned, Right Honorable Bagbin is not an NDC speaker.
But did you listen to him?
Well, that is his view. He mentioned the great, but it is different for the deputies. It is different for the deputies. For deputies, Article 96(1), there shall be 2 deputy speakers of Parliament, who shall be elected by members of Parliament from among members of Parliament, and both of whom shall not be members of the same political party. This is not the same language as used for the speaker. So some are raising issues about the second deputy, but I'm saying that
the speaker is to be elected from among members of Parliament.
And yes,
and
there
a
is
member
no
of Parliament would necessarily be a member of a political party or an independent.
Oh, we said or any other person who qualifies to be a member of Parliament. That is also to be qualified, right? And so, for me, there has been some apprehension that what about a situation under Article 60, where Article 60(11), where the president and the vice president are both unable to perform the functions of the president. The Speaker of Parliament shall perform those functions until the president or the vice president is able to perform those functions or a new president assumes office, as the case may be. I don't think there should be the need for any apprehension. Some have said that, hey, can you imagine President Kufuor is out of the country and Dr. Bawumia is not present or unable to perform the functions. And Right Honorable Bagbin, as they put it, is the president. It means NDC has assumed power. Even though I believe that politically it may be prudent for both the president and the vice not to be outside the country at the same time, or to be disabled from performing the functions of president at the same time. I'm saying that if we are to ensure the fidelity to the terms and the sanctity of the constitutional provisions that we have given to ourselves, Honorable Bagbin himself should not see himself as 2 MPP people, president and the vice, are out of the country. So now NDC is in power, and I'm going to enforce the constitution and perform the functions of the president to reverse certain decisions of the president. That will also be a violation of the Constitution. So I think we can gradually, the voter has brought us to this level to understand that, one, we are practicing substantially executive system of government, and two, there is a hybrid system as far as parliament is also concerned. I mean, where we have taken part of the UK system and part of the American system. But for the presidency, any person who now thinks that it is business as usual, I'm going to just pursue the cause of my party, even if members of my own community or constituency disagree with me, they should see it coming. The voters have now come to the understanding that the fact that somebody from your party is the president does not also mean that you must control parliament. That is the signal. And if the situation is as it is, then when you are in parliament and you are the speaker or you are the majority, you cannot also, quote unquote, appear to be doing what was previous, because this whole situation says that we can only move forward. And that is why, when it comes to Honorable Bagbin, I said that I think at this point in time, and I say it without any relish, that I think that he is the person for this moment, as far as the two are concerned. But just to also conclude that credit should also be given to the MPP side, because at least 3 people have exhibited democratic credentials, that not always must we vote for what our party says we should vote. Right. We will rather pursue the... just a second.
Are we right by the numbers 3?
Well, I was corrected by...
Bagbin would have had 140.
No, I was corrected by some judge.
That cannot be correct. So that's wrong straight away, looking at the numbers.
Well,
can you say that again?
Whatever
it is, one person voted from the MPP side for him, another spoiled the ballot. I'm not convinced that it was unintentional. It was. If ordinary people have voted for you in a way to comply with the law, and you, a member of parliament, you don't know what is a spoiled ballot, then you don't deserve to be in parliament. And I'm asking them to come out to congratulate Honorable Bagbin like the NDC people did. Let us know that they boldly decided to vote against the wishes of their party. Why not?
They're entitled to that.
No, but after the voting...
But they don't have to.
But the whole NDC people
if they have the conviction, they should come out.
They should come out. Why should they be hiding?
On that, the choice of Alban, Right Honourable Alban Bagbin,
please, if you know
leader, and your expectations moving
should just
forward.
tell us. He says it. Just tell us.
Right Honourable Alban Kingsford Sumani Bagbin is someone who is an institution. Arguably, he is the most experienced legislator in Africa.
I see.
There is no other member of parliament in any parliament in Africa that has spent 28 years in parliament. And so he is the embodiment of parliamentary institutionalization. I remember in December, just before we broke for the Christmas break, the then minority, we had a caucus meeting, and we made a strong case that we knew he was not coming back to parliament, and that irrespective of whatever happened, we wanted to engage him as a consultant to the caucus. So we had given express approval to our leadership to take funds out of our caucus funds and set up an office where we could tap into his wide reservoir of knowledge. As God will have it, man proposes, God disposes. The NDC majority in parliament, in the 8th parliament, is not going to be the only ones to tap into that vast reservoir. But the whole country will benefit from his vast knowledge. But you see, Abina, let's call a spade a spade. Today, our boy is here telling us how nice Bagbin is. When the MPP issued a statement and said that they were nominating Mike.
I'm not here for MPP, please.
Exactly. So
No,
please
wait.
make your point. Okay,
I'll
don't
make your
yes.
point.
You mentioned my name.
And then
I'll
make your point.
I'll come to him.
The MPP man is
I'll
on
come
the
there.
left.
Why did you not come out and say, oh, MPP is entitled to make their appointment or their nomination, but I think Bagbin is good. You were quiet. You, Bemka. When
So
But
today,
that is not.
I had to come on
really-
TV.
why?
I had to come on TV.
Can I express my
You can.
You carry on.
Who impeach the views if they are.
Carry on.
Today, Bemka is telling us that
I had my choice anyway.
he's telling us how nice Bagbin is. He's a man of his own.
But it has happened already.
You
What should
knew
we say?
this, and yet you people decided you wanted to go into an election. And you see, let's be clear, there was no selection of Bagbin. It was an election,
Of course.
which he won.
By
He
the-
was nominated.
by the democratic
He was
credentials
seconded.
of others.
He was nominated and seconded. There was a counter motion moved by Osei Chairman Sambosu and seconded by Afenyo Makin, nominating Right Honorable Mike Eronokwe as he was at the time. And we voted. And Bagbin won. Today, you want to come and tell us how good he was. If you knew how good he was, why did you not drop down?
That's why the MPP people voted
Really?
for him.
Are you being very serious?
Bagbin for
I'll take
me.
that,
Bagbin for me. When you were talking,
I think
let me finish.
really-
Let me finish.
Honorable Bagbin is one of those MPs who has been celebrated even before this position, you know.
So, why did they want to use a 3-line whip
In 4
to
years,
ensure that Bagbin did not emerge?
In 4 years, as far as I was a member of the 7th Parliament, Right Honorable Professor Mike Aaron Okwe distinguished himself as a speaker.
No doubt.
No doubt about it.
Well, that's your view, and I respect it.
He did.
So don't
He
go asking them
distinguished
those
himself as a speaker.
But I also hold a view that Right Honorable Mike Aaron Okwe was the most divisive speaker of our fourth republic.
He was not.
No,
He was not.
And I will back it by evidence.
He was not.
As speaker, he saw the highest number of walkouts, 11, of any speaker in the fourth republic. It goes to tell you how
So you blame
partisan
it
he
on
was.
him instead of those walking out.
It was because of his decisions.
No.
Very well.
It was because of his decision making.
No.
And if you really believe Bagbin,
If a Japan deal was brought to Parliament and walked out, what had that got to do with the speaker?
because he refused to listen to our
He didn't
objections.
refuse to listen to anything. He didn't refuse to. You made your
You were not
submissions.
paying
You
attention
made
in
your
Parliament at the
submissions
time.
and walked out.
You weren't paying
You
attention
made your
in Parliament.
submissions and walked out.
Thank you.
You see,
Please,
Thank you.
can I,
don't impeach his
Honourable
integrity.
Judge, please.
Right Honourable Professor Mike Aaron Okwe.
Everybody
is
has their
par
time.
excellence.
This is the time
It is just that
for Bagbin.
this
Let
time
him go on.
you people decided to infiltrate MPP ranks and got what you wanted. That's all.
That is quite incredible.
That's fine. Honourable
I mean,
Judge, please continue. I need to switch to
You allowed yourself
panel as
to
well.
be infiltrated. Go on, go on.
Please go on.
the point that I make here
That's an indictment. Honorable.
is that if you sit here today and sing the praises of Right Honorable Alban and Bagbin, we are grateful that you are singing his praises. We are grateful that you agree that the NDC's decision making was spot on and nationalistic. Whether anybody likes it or not, Mr. Bagbin is a member of the NDC. He holds no other party membership. His allegiance as speaker is to the Constitution of Ghana.
And that's the point they're making.
That's the
point they're making.
However, as a human being, he's an NDC member.
Very well. Point well made. And we'll be looking out for.
And so for me, but if anything, it's anything to go by. I have had I find it very difficult when Bagbin is in the chair in the 4 years I've been in Parliament.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So exactly. Go
I have always said, listen, I have always said that of the 3 speakers in the 4 parliaments, the person I enjoyed or who gave me the most laxity whenever I rose to speak was Joseph Osei Joe Wise.
Very well.
You know why? Joe Wise will allow you flow irrespective of any errors you make. Mr. Bagbin.
They should have nominated him.
Mr. Bagbin.
Mr.
Bagbin.
should have nominated
Mr. Bagbin would make sure that everything you do is in perfect consonance with the standing of
he
the parliament.
indicated that in his
That's
speech.
what we
Thank
want.
you for that. Let
So
me
for
pass over
me,
to
he is a fantastic choice. I salute the NDC for nominating him.
Thank you
and
very
I salute our collaborators in the defense of the Constitution on the MPP side.
Thank you very much.
Who voted with us to ensure.
Can you hear me?
Who are
they? I'm coming to you now with other after the storm came the calm, and eventually the election of the Right Honourable Alban Kingsford Mani Bagbin as the Speaker. What do you make of that? How do you see him, and whether or not he would help with the steering of affairs in this 8th Parliament?
One of the areas that I have very little knowledge of is how parliamentary systems work. So I want to leave any detailed analysis of that to good professors like Professor Chu and Professor Jampo, and of course, those who are well informed, like my colleagues with you in the studio. But nevertheless, let me make a couple of observations. I think we can now learn that as individuals, as well as institutions and organizations, we need to be aware that the world is a stage. There's a time when we arrive. There's a time that we depart. And sometimes it helps to keep your legacy intact, your resume, to know when it is to bow out under congenial circumstances. So if the Right Honourable former Speaker had recognized that as a combination of a number of factors, some not within his control or means to control, and had bowed out honorably, I think when those professors write, they would have had many more things to say about him on the positive side. Under the circumstance, he was forced out. And to me, it's not too good that looking at, how my colleagues have, touted him, that he should bow out under such circumstances. But besides it may, that was, the outcome. Secondly, I want us to be mindful of not jumping to conclusion that the outcome of the election of the Speaker, shows that the two parties are learning to work together. The anecdotes flying around on social media suggest to the contrary. There were simple human tendencies of seeking revenge, for instance, that came into play with nothing to do about the capabilities or qualities and or otherwise of the two individuals who were, who had been nominated for the position. So until we know the motivations of those who voted for, those who voted against, those who destroyed their ballots, and one who is alleged to have, probably not ticked anybody. If that was a spoiled ballot box, I'm not too sure. We should be very circumspect, not to conclude that this parliament or political parties are learning to build a consensus and so on and so forth. But nevertheless, I think I would wish to associate myself with all the nice things said about the incumbent speaker. In fact, I will emphasize more on his personal integrity, honesty, uprightness, fairness, firmness, and so on. That even if he was a member of the NDC, the chair that he holds now or sits on is not an NDC chair. So it behoves of him to discharge of his functions professionally in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution and other rules as established by Parliament, so that we will learn to deepen and consolidate our democracy. But I wish him well, and I wish this 8th Parliament well.
Very well.
I hope that as they go into sessions, they will learn not to repeat some of the mistakes that have been occasioned in the past. Because the more they do that, the more they undermine, as I keep saying, the democratic project that we have all embarked on. So let me end my comments here. I thank you.
Very well. Thank you for that, Colonel Festus Abuaje. We'll be taking some comments that have come through from viewers and listeners shortly. We have a few displayed on the screen. This one comes in from Minila in Bumpurungu. He says, "Good morning, TV3 and your honorable panelists. The act of bringing in the military into the Parliament House was incorrect. A member of Parliament could have concluded that there is a state of war, I believe, outside of Parliament, and could have caused greater trouble as soon as the military stepped in. I totally agree that something should be done to correct that." The next one says, that's from Babamu in Tamale. He says, "In short, the entire process in Parliament was a fiasco, and so the entire parliamentarians must bow their heads in shame. Honorable St. George and the NDC can tickle themselves and laugh with this, their minority claim." Well, they're claiming majority, rather. My regards to Honorable Lawyer Pemka for his brilliant submission. Who chooses a speaker? It's not the majority caucus. So is it not? Sorry, is it not the majority caucus? So which party in Parliament is the majority? We have an NDC member within the NPP, and they form the majority. Good morning, Ghana. That's coming from Hop Jones. Another one coming in says, "Good morning, Abner and your panelists. If the president is to be in office for a period of 4 years and he starts on the 7th January 2020, 7 January 2024 will be 4 years, 1 day, a day more than he is constitutionally permitted. Therefore, his term must end on the 6th January, 12 midnight. Joe Conlan in Kaswanda. I'll take one more. We go. This one says, "Good morning, Abner. I disagree that the president's term ends on midnight of 6 January. It ends on the date of the swearing in, i.e., as soon as the new president is sworn in, the old president's term is ended. There is no definite timeline. 12:01 of the 7th of January. That's Jacob in Tamale. Last one says, "Good morning, NDC MPs. We are proud of you people. You have made us happy. Continue with the good work." That's enough. There are a number of messages, but we need to draw the curtains here. But before that, I'll take a minute each from you. Give us your concluding remarks. If you could do it in less than a minute, I'd be super.
Less than a minute?
Yes.
Let me say that I was very much impressed with the president's speech. And also to end by saying that let us continue to have faith and confidence in our judiciary. They are established to be the last place of call. And fortunately, we have very independent-minded judges who will determine matters in accordance with the facts, the law, their conscience, and the belief they have in God. Let's continue to have that.
Thank you. Honorable Sam George.
In 1 minute, I choose to sing the song in Parliament that we sang. That after we sang, may the soldiers leave. Comrades may go, comrades may come, but a revolution has come to stay. Revolution has a long way to go, but has come to stay.
Very well.
When we sang that song, the soldiers left the chamber.
I see. Honorable Pemka.
I would like to congratulate His Excellency the President again and say that his speech was spot on, very short and straight to the point. And also look at the other side, the number of foreign dignitaries who attended. Wow, it was fantastic. Heads of state, prime ministers, foreign ministers. In fact, it was fantastic. And I think that we commend the organizers' state protocol as well. We wish His Excellency the President and His Excellency the Vice President well in their 4-year term.
Thank you so much. Lastly, Colonel, your concluding remarks in maybe 30 seconds.
To settle. And until such time that the Supreme Court makes a decision to change the status quo, all the different stakeholders, from executive to legislature to the judiciary itself, all other kinds of stakeholders, including civil society, must learn to walk the talk. We've had too many rhetorics where what is said on public platforms is actually not what is happening on the ground.
Right.
And we need to avoid that kind of behavior.
Very well.
What we tell people in public must be what we do even behind the scenes. That will help to build confidence.
Very well.
The democratic system. I thank you.
Thank you so much as well. And we've had Colonel Festus Abwaje, a security analyst. Also, we've had Mr. Yao Pong, a private legal practitioner. We've also had Honorable Sam George, MP for Ningo Pram Pram, and Honorable Joseph Kwemka, former Deputy Attorney General and also former MP for the Timpani constituency. It's been an interesting conversation here. We do appreciate your time and we wish the 8th Parliament well. Because if they succeed, we succeed as a people. We'll be back here same time next week. My name is Abna Tebi, and this has been The Key Points. Do stay well and stay safe. Bye-bye.